format. So let's take a look at some of the changes that we have for this season. It is going to be, David.
The first change is that we're muted and no one can hear anything we say. That's the first change in our coverage plan for this year.
Are we back? I think now we are back. Hello, everybody. I don't know if any of my earlier words could be heard, but in case it was not live or I was muted, welcome to today's show. This is the Pro Chess League, the brand new Pro Chess League, absolutely new format. David, you were just about to tell us about the format.
Yes, the format kicking off in just a little bit here. We've got 3 1 hour. No, this is the format for the quarterfinals. Sorry. That's up right now. The format for today is going to be a 2-hour arena of 3-minute blitz, no increment, nothing, just 3-minute. There's, people are going to run out of time, I think, now and then. A 2-hour arena, and it's a team arena. So all 4 teams are playing, and that means you can only play people from the other 3 teams. And you just keep starting more games, however many you can get in 2 hours, trying to rack up the points. As you might expect, the team that scores the most is going to advance. The team that scores the least will get eliminated. But what happens if you have a 2nd place and a 3rd place team? Which of them advances?
And now we're going to see a knockout stage. And I think that was the slide we were showing earlier. It's going to be a very exciting second phase for today's show. So we are starting with the 2-hour arena, 3+0, no increment, as David already highlighted. And it's 4 groups of 4 teams. So overall, today we are starting with Group A, and there are up to 9 players on the roster of each team, but only the top 6 scorers will count for the results. Let's take a look at who are some of the beasts of the Pro Chess League, who are some of the earlier champions.
Yeah, if anybody's been following chess in the last couple of years, they've heard of St. Louis. And, it'll be no surprise that St. Louis has been the dominant force in the Pro Chess League. They won the inaugural league in 2017. They won it again back-to-back in 2019 and 2020. The only other team to beat them, the Armenia Eagles, is no longer in the league. So will they have any competition this year, Anna?
Hopefully they will have, and there are loads of prizes. We have individual prizes as well as, of course, the team prizes. So these are some of the individual prizes that can be won by the players. First place being $1,000 for today's group stage, and the 10th place is $100. But also the teams themselves will be cashing in on prizes, so you can win individually as well as together as a team. We will have also special prizes for the best player stream and the best team stream. So watch out for all the players and teams, the squads streaming their own competitions.
Yeah. And if you have a team that you're a big fan of today, or a player that you're a big fan of today, hopefully we can get some links circulating and you can find out, the perspective of them, and you can leave us for a couple minutes and check out their stream and, watch the event from the perspective of your favorite professional chess player.
Indeed. And some of those professional chess players that David might be referring to are this star-stacked field, including a last name we've just added to the Brazil capybaras. Hikar Nakamura has just been registered for the Brazilian team.
Yeah, right in time. I mean, I saw this list, 3 minutes ago without his name. There he is. That's going to be an insane force for the capybaras to have Hikar on the team. These other teams are pretty stacked too, though, because we've got China and Russia, 2 powerhouse teams at the Olympiads, in the Pro Chess League, wherever they show up. These teams are always going to be strong. And they're bringing some 2700s. They're bringing some blitz specialists. Check it out, everybody. There's some players to watch here.
Very exciting match is going to be in the Sweden. Wasabis are back too at the Pro Chess League. I'm happy to see that they have their regular squad with Amin Bassem on the top board. I was going to point out earlier that the only team that doesn't have a 2700 rated player is the Brazil Capybaras, but it's no longer true. Right. It's no longer true now with Hikar on board. Every single team has 1 or 2 2700 rated players.
All right. So the schedule, there's going to be a second arena tomorrow at the same time as today for Group B. And then we're going to skip Saturday for a reason, which we will tell you soon. And on Sunday, Group C will play, and Monday, Group D will play at the same time as this. And then we'll get into quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. We'll tell you more about that later. Right now, quick announcement about this Saturday.
Indeed, David, as you said, we are skipping Saturday for the Pro Chess League because we have the Speed Chess Grand Prix for September the 18th. You need to mark it on your calendar. There's a prize fund of $40,000, and the top chess players and streamers in the world will be competing for that $40K prize fund.
Yeah. And I don't know how many weeks that Grand Prix is going to run, but I know that that the player who gets the most points over the course of several weeks will get a spot in the Speed Chess Championship main event. So they'll get one of those prize 16 spots to compete against the world's best players, and in this knockout blitz match format. So that's coming up soon.
Absolutely huge. But before we head over to all the Speed Chess excitement, stay with us for the Pro Chess League that's starting in a few minutes. We're going to take a very short break, and then we are back with the arena. That's going to be 2 hours of nonstop blitz action with some of the strongest players in the world, including Hikaru Nakamura.
Want to hold a massive chess tournament with dozens of clubs or hundreds of players? Or maybe a small chess tournament with local but competitive clubs? With Club Arenas, you can. Club arenas allow for tournaments of any size with any number of clubs and players. Customize the arena with any time control, with standard chess or mini chess variants, and with any starting position you want. Club arenas are the most flexible tournament format on Chess.com. Try one out today.
Coming in October, the FIDE Chess.com Grand Swiss, normally held at the Isle of Man. This year's event will be played in Riga, Latvia. 2 spots in the 2022 Candidates Tournament and 1 spot in the next Women's Candidates Tournament are up for grabs, as well as a $550,000 total prize fund. Who will take the next step to becoming world champion? What do you think, David? $550,000. I can't even read a number this big.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. So many good players are going to be there. I just have to wait and see. You know, it's going to be exciting.
Before we get there, I just that we have so many events to announce. We're gonna now focus on what's happening today because the games are already underway. Welcome everybody now officially to this year's Pro Chess League, which is a new format, Arena Royale. We're gonna see 2 hours of Blitz Arena between some of the top chess players in the world. Today it's Group A, and we have 4 teams that will be competing. Big Fish versus Hikaru is our first game. That's Fedoseyev against, obviously, Hikaru Nakamura.
Yeah, this is crazy, and it shows how much this like season/off season has shaken up the Pro Chess League, because these two were teammates on the New York Marshalls just 1 year ago. And here they are in the first round. Hikaru was threatening checkmate on F2, mate in 1 in like 7 moves against his former teammate. So they're not waiting to pull out the stops. If I'd realized that players were going to be switching teams, I would have invited these guys to my team, but I didn't. So we get to watch them here today.
We get to watch them, and the evaluation bar is very much liking Hikaru's position. At the same time, it's quite a chaotic one. The Black King just had to move out of that check, so no castling, but it's material up for Black. The knight on H1 is just being captured, and now Bishop E8 to trade that very active piece of White, the H5 bishop.
Yeah, Black needs to dig out this rook on H8 and couldn't figure out how to do it with the bishop on H5 and pawn on F5. So, Fedoseyev finds a way to keep the king from getting F7. So Hikaru still has some work to do to unbottle this rook.
Wow, I wasn't expecting this, but makes sense that of course White is trying to keep the king on the back rank. Now E7 too is a square that's available for Hikaru's king, but he is not in a rush with that. He first pushes B5 to prevent C4.
Yeah, that was great, solidifying a great knight on D5. That's how you make like a square, everybody. Sometimes squares just fall into your lap. Sometimes your opponent creates an outpost for you. Other times you have to make squares for yourself, and you can establish a knight by controlling the squares diagonal from it with your own pawns. So nice technique from Hikaru.
And what a pawn formation by Fedoseyev on the king side. Unfortunately, it's not that good for him, but he did create a diamond.
It was pretty, but not effective. Wait, knight F7 has been allowed.
He's pushing.
I don't know if that's on purpose
and
or
now
what.
Knight F7. I guess in both cases the H pawn was gonna fall. This is happening very quickly, but suddenly the tables are slightly turning.
He's threatening to queen, so Hikaru's gonna have to play something unpleasant like King E7. This whole time I was feeling that White did have practical chances, despite being down in exchange throughout the game. Wow, and Hikaru gets his king chased away a little bit.
Yeah, Rook D8. Although now in this moment, Black can take the bishop, trade it for the E8 knight. Since that E8 knight doesn't have many squares to go to, Hikaru says no, I'm in no hurry. But I was a bit worried about this F6 push.
Yeah.
How will Hikaru stop the pass pawns?
He went the right way there. King B2 would have led to checkmate with knight C4, rook B1, an unusual checkmate pattern to watch out for. The rook and knight can do some crazy stuff to you, but now it looks like this pawn is basically queening on G8.
Yeah, so the bishop was lost, but it's more important that there's a new queen entering the board. Suddenly, Big Fish from a lost position is now winning, and he still has a second pass pawn too.
Exactly. There's a second queen if he needs it, depending on his technique. With 3 seconds on the clock, Oh, wait,
Reminder,
he
there's
might
no
not get this.
increment. There is no increment. He may not get it. He might.
There's no increment. Wait, Hikar won that
lose
game.
Time
All right.
with the queen up. He lost. Hikar was in a winning position earlier. It's just that it got messy with that knight f7 pattern, winning the material back and giving back the chances to Fedoseyev. But everything happened so quickly there. And because there's no increment, flagging skills are very important too in this arena. And Hikar obviously was the faster player. Wow, what a game.
All right. I took my eye off the clock. Maybe, hopefully for the last time this arena. I have to remember in 3-minute chess, like the time is a big part of your material, right? It's not like, oh, I've got an extra pawn, but you know.
I also forgot for quite a long time because we started with that big bang from the Hikaru Fedoseyev game. It was such an exciting game on the board, and now we know also on the clock.
Yeah, a cool calculation from Alexei Serrana, who we're watching here now with black. If the knight trades on d4 and then the bishop does something aggressive, the queen has this f4 check to escape from it. So after thought, Fier just plays knight e5, threatening queen f7. Serrana defends it. This position's complicated. White's got a very good chance of coming up with some kind of disturbing tactical breakthrough here.
Yeah, it looks like White should have something because the black king is in the middle of the board. At the same time, there's no pawn break, so White could only open up the position by sacrificing a minor
maybe knight
piece.
d5, bishop f5 check. Because that king is busy defending the bishop on e7. Well, he tried
That's what we're gonna see. That's what we're gonna see, whether it's good or bad. This is happening.
I would be scared to take it with my e-pawn, but limited choices, I suppose. And which position would you like to have here, Anna? The extra knight or the king as a target?
I think the king is a target, and I'm not really a sacrificial player, but I just feel like it's so difficult to defend. You need to be extremely precise to not get checkmated here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see the defensive move for black. I don't even see the very next move to play, because White's idea is if the knight moves to play rook d5 check, and then, you know, the bishop and the d7 square, maybe knight e6 to try to block the e file will provide some defense, but
yeah,
it feels like White will have a way through somehow.
Is it going to be now with a check, or you think that there's something more important here to do? Because the knight did leave the d4 square, leaving the d file open for the white rook. But is there a follow-up here? What's the punch?
White could trade on e6 and play queen e5. Black would probably have to block with the bishop, and then White could take the pawn on e6 with the queen. Just, you know, just gradually clearing stuff out of the way. White goes for the rook lift, but Serrana's king just danced into the corner, and that looks winning for black.
Yeah, and I would certainly take black's position because there aren't even any more checks for White. This was very unfortunate for Fier that the black king is now safer than ever. If anyone's king can be attacked now, it's going to be almost the white king.
Yeah, and people often don't realize that when you're trying to convert, and here comes the conversion, it's going to be a checkmate attack from Serrana. When you're trying to convert a knight against two pawns, even if you were getting attacked at some point, usually the way to convert is to go for a counterattack and use the knight in the middle game, because the knight doesn't always beat pawns very easily in an endgame. So
very true. Very true. What a game this has been. Very exciting. Very exciting start for this year's Pro Chess League. Again, different format, but many of the same teams have returned.
Ooh, Amin Bassem against Alexeyenko. I believe that Bilodeau is Alexeyenko. Alexeyev.
Yeah, I'm also just checking on the players list. There are so many different usernames, and I was just trying to also magically make it appear on my screen to help you out.
Yeah, from the candidates, from the previous candidates match, I think. So this is a heavyweight battle here. Alexeyenko. Dennis Boros is confirming for me. Alexeyenko. Kirill Alexeyenko.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you for the confirmation there. And the position itself is looking very promising for white with the queenside pass pawns.
Yeah, black is strong on the king side, white on the queen side. With 2 extra pawns, it's kind of an inevitable win for white unless black does something to mess it all up. So black's looking for the H pawn going to G2. White traded off the bishop so there wouldn't be mate on G2. That was pretty clever. Bishop B3, I'm giving a lot of points for that. Oh, you have to trade it with check. You have to trade it with check.
What is checkmate? What?
Oh, he doesn't play it.
Grandmaster hanging checkmate in 1 and the opponent not taking it. This is 2 grandmasters, ladies and gentlemen. Checkmate in 1.
These are 2 2700s. These are super grandmasters. Whew.
It was checkmate on G2. White allowed it and black didn't take it.
Every now and then on my stream, I don't know if this comes up on your stream, but people ask me like, do grandmasters ever miss mate in 1? And we're like, well, there was that Kramnik time, but he was playing a computer. It was like a lot of pressure, you know? And so people are always wondering like, does it happen? Well, yeah. Now it's going to be a flag, right? Nobody's going to win or lose on the board. It's just all that we should watch is the clock here, I think.
Indeed, 9.8
11
seconds
versus 9.8.
10.8. I mean, maybe a second checkmate attempt, but this is a bit too late.
Oh, he's going for the checkmate attempt. Who's got a couple
right.
extra seconds?
Respect, but I don't think they're gonna have the time to finish it.
Rook's just Pac-Manning through hanging pawns every move. Weird moves.
Even white giving up the rook
completely random. Completely random. Rook G7 for the kill. What did we just see?
This game has been incredibly chaotic, and one wouldn't have thought that grandmasters, super grandmasters, can miss checkmate in 1. Both of them missed it.
Yeah. Will this game here be decided by a pawn promoting like I would expect? Or will it be also rook takes G7 for the win?
It is white who needs to hurry up and try to make up for the few second time disadvantage. Right. But
what's
black
better?
is thinking.
What's better, 2 seconds or 2 queens? We will find out right now. There's 2 queens. Apparently, as long as there's a knight in bullet, you still have a chance. Black won on time. See, still had a knight.
I would not have guessed any of the results from these first couple of games.
Honestly, even after the game's end, I'm not sure which side won. I'm so confused. I'm like,
This is great stuff. This is what we love about the PogChamps series, that it's so unpredictable, the evaluation bar dances. But now we have grandmasters, super grandmasters, projecting their best PogChamps participant impressions. I love it.
You better hope they don't watch this. You better hope these super GMs don't watch this.
I am criticizing all the grandmasters. No, it's the lack of time, obviously. There's no increment here. So they are just throwing whatever they can at each other. The last few seconds is just mud fight.
Somebody needs to these super GMs on Twitter and have a quote from you saying like this is what we love about PogChamps, and then give their games.
Retired, I am Anna with her 2300 rating here to criticize. No, much respect to them, but without increment, last few seconds of the game is not really chess. It's more about just finding the check so that your opponent cannot pre-move.
Yeah, here comes rook c4, rook c8. Still some tactics, but look at how much time Serrano has on the clock. That means he's almost guaranteed to win, right? Even if he hangs his rooks here.
I think so, yes. At the same time, I don't know. I feel like if we predict the result, it's going to be the opposite somehow.
How many points they have so far? These 2 players each have 5 points, which I believe makes them the number 2 point scorer. If I'm reading the information right next to their names correctly, and folks, you can keep track of this as we're watching. I think that number there above shows how many points they've scored in the arena, and right below shows their current standing in the arena. So these players have the second most points. And Serrano just spent 35 seconds on a move.
Which means that suddenly the time is very close for both players. We thought this was easy. We thought that flagging skills will matter here the most. And I guess it still is true, but it's so much closer than we predicted.
He spent 35 seconds, found a way to stay ahead of piece, but now he's got 2 seconds left.
Is this like this connection? Why was he spending so long?
I suppose so. And Okay.
I lose on time.
Amazing.
Wow, that was very much out of the blue. Material up and just spent too long on the last couple of moves.
Anyone in particular you'd like to watch, just let me know. I know there's a lot of great names here. I just popped over to Yevgeny Tomaszewski, part of the 2700 squad on the Wizards.
And the Wizards are doing really well. The standings that we were looking at earlier had plenty of Russian flags. So the way this works, there are 4 teams that we are observing today. They cannot play against each other, players of the same team. But the top 6 scorers of each team will be added up. It's 1 point for a draw, 2 points for a win. And after the 2 hours of Arena, 3-0, no increment, we will see who is the strongest team.
2 minutes on the clock. I'm hoping for a nice, clean, technical win from Tomaszewski. I want to see like a pawn march down the board, promote, and the opponent resign. Just one time.
That's what I was going to say, David, that this could be the first game that will have enough time to complete it on the board with chess moves and not the flagging skills at the end, which was the case, of course, with 3-0. If there's no time at the end, we cannot complain. There's no beautiful 70 move rook end games. But this one, because they still have plenty of time, could be one of those games, I agree, where we're going to see a promotion and maybe resignation.
And White's basically up 2 pawns instead of 1 because of the bad shape of the d6 pawn. So we see Black taking sort of desperate action, right? Throws some kind of a threat at White. Even if it doesn't work, maybe it's going to take White, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to find the defense. And then you switch to flag mode if that's what you need, right? So he's throwing 1 or 2 things at the White king, trying to create space for a couple checks and tactics. But Tomaszewski is playing very, very clean moves so far.
Very clean. And also it's not that, okay. So he takes on d5 and e4. I was going to say, it's not that obvious because now the Black queen is trying to make it close to the White king with the idea of threatening perhaps a perpetual check. Those connected passpawns of White are still extremely strong, but White needs to watch out for the weakened king structure.
For a second, I thought that Hikar used the pre-move a little bit too early, but actually this was all planned. This was all like a clever idea to actually create space for his queen to get near the king. This was actually really, really clever how he made something out of nothing and created some threats here.
And Tomaszewski bringing back the queen, he gave a check in order to have that tempo on the queen g3. That was very smart to keep his king safer, but now he's the one with less time. Yeah.
And you see Hikar's threats against the king side actually allowed him to win one of those queenside pawns. So he's narrowed the amount of room that Tomaszewski has to win this game, right? Like Tomaszewski's got 1 A pawn left. If it gets dropped, the game is equal.
And only 44 seconds versus 52. This is going down the wire. The Black king very active in the middle of the board, and that pawn cannot be taken because then the knight is dropping.
There's also queen e3, which I think Tomaszewski is going to have seen and preferred.
I didn't see that. So beautiful. That's a resignation. Still 39 seconds. And of course, a queen up. That was a lovely tactical pattern. I was so focused on the knight, but you're right, David. This is the killer move. And of course, that's what grandmasters find. Yeah. I should go back to backseating without criticizing GMs.
Okay, so let's pick somebody else. We've got a big matchup here for Hikaru. Rook endgame. This is
indeed a very big one, and
he's in tough Russian position team. Here.
So
he's tied for first place
Russian
on points.
Individually, they are tied, and in terms of the Russian team, I think the Russian team should be leading, seeing how many of their players are in the top 10. So this is a big one for the teams as well. The Capybaras against the Wizards.
Right. Yeah, if the Wizards have 3 players in the top 5, that means their team standings are probably the highest right now. White here is Maxim Chigayev. A very strong player with previous Pro Chess League success. The previous format of the Pro Chess League was 10 or 15 minute games, depending on the time, rather than 3-minute games. And he had great success in that format. He's about 2650 FIDE, but I think even a little bit stronger in these rapid formats. And right now, I think this position is a pretty easy technical win for white, which he's kind of demonstrating. But now he's got to calculate a second. C7, king d7 is not what he's looking for. Probably you should drop the rook down to the 4th or 3rd rank first to be able to give some checks and keep the king away.
And he plays it.
Okay.
He plays it, and if it wasn't a glitch, then Hikar indeed resigned. That was an upset by the Russian wizards.
Yeah, and that must put the Russian wizards in pretty good standings at the moment. Let me check out the club standings for 1 second. Right now, I'm seeing actually the pandas and the wasabis lagging quite far behind the capybaras and the wizards. So the Russian team is in the lead as we were concluding from the player scoreboard, right? But the capybaras actually have twice as many points as the pandas or the wasabis. So here we're watching one of the pandas. Love is
I believe Wei Yi.
Yeah, Wei Yi. Yeah, Wei Yi.
Usernames.
Yes. And the position looks a little bit risky for both players to me because of all the pieces that are on squares not defended by pawns. Like I just see, tactics to this queen and this bishop and here, and the rook barely defended and the rook on a4 barely defended and f7. And it just looks risky all around to me.
It looks very risky. At the same time, our evaluation bar is just very calm and cool, saying this is about equal. At the same time, looking at the time situation too, I think we're going to have a decisive result in this game. I agree with you that there's so many patterns, possible tactics.
Right. It may or may not be equal. It's got that feeling to me of a high blunder potential kind of position. Not that I try to, say that they're making a blunder if they make a mistake. It's like a position where it's easy to blunder something. So many undefended pieces, right? Like f7 and I don't know.
Yeah, even this rook b4, which seems like such a natural move. Our evaluation board did not agree with it at all.
2 pieces just got attacked, right? So
Bishop g1.
Rook g1 is possible, but so is king h1. Queen f5, rook c1, king h2. I mean, I guess that's impractical to go for in a blitz game.
The bishop will be dropping the
knight c4 is possible here.
Yeah, I get the knight had to come back, but knight d3, which defends the bishop, wasn't the best because of now queen c6, again attacking 2 pieces at the same time.
Yeah, the knight should have actually gone to c4, I think, to keep the back rank rook d8 thing. I mean, I'm sort of just guessing here because this is crazy. Wow, they agreed to a draw. The blunder potential went both ways, right?
First white stop predicting. Wow, what a game this was. So many
first white
pieces.
Won a piece, then black won a piece. That's what happens when all your pieces are undefended, folks. It's like you can be a candidate for the world championship and it will not protect you from tactics when all your pieces are on undefended squares.
Very true, very true. Which game shall we tune in with?
Let's check out Krikor, the leader of the capybaras who are doing so well so far. Here he is with black. Oh no, here he is with white. And I don't know who WDCC is.
I'll need to take a look at the players list with so many different usernames, but the China pandas here with the black pieces and with a good chance to score against the capybaras now that black's position is so dominant.
Yeah, just consolidating. It looked like black was going to try for checkmate, and then they realized white had this counterattack. And so they just covered the king and let the pawns win. It's hard to imagine how white creates a threat here, right? If you're ever in a blitz game, you're going to want to know, how do I create a threat?
Yeah,
and they've built sort of a full wall.
And yeah, there's no time.
Couldn't find anything. Still trying.
A check.
That's a lot of queens.
Back.
That's too many. Of queens. It's over, my friend. We're going to move on. But overall, Krikor's team still doing well, very well at the moment. I Amin Bassem against Wei Yi.
I'm just surprised that we still have time on the clock for this game. No, we tuned in at an early stage. This is still a very exciting position, considering that white has this nice knight placement on d5 and the a file. And of course, black is trying to challenge it immediately, making sure that white will need to remove that piece from d5.
Yeah, the a file is nice.
I wonder what's going to happen now. Will black decide to take? He takes in the end with the knight and then places the bishop on f5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, black wants room to play rook a8 at some point, or rook e7. And the queen has to keep this pawn defended at the moment. A little bit of an unpleasant task. And we switch to opposite colored bishops. Both bishops are bad right now. So who's going to get their bishop going first is going to be very important here.
I really like how white is keeping the control of the a file with queen a1 and now trading then the white rook. The other rook can come to a1.
Yeah. Feels like the torture potential is really coming against black here. If you counter the c file with rook c7, white has rook c6, right? And you don't want to trade and give white a pass pawn on c6. So Wei Yi doesn't even try to counter the c file with rook c7. He just goes straight into passivity and hopes he can hold it together. I would have stopped h5. I would have played h5 for black.
I guess he was also worried about bishop to h3 because the rook had no more squares on the d5. So he wants to make sure that he can drop the rook back to d8 and still hold on to d6. But what a scary looking position.
So there was no easy answer to that.
Yeah, with the double threat of h5 and bishop h3, I think he's just trying his best, but it does look very scary.
Uh-oh. Now there's rook c7, queen f2, defending f7. Nice try by Wei Yi. Bassem defended. Bassem seems like somebody who's never in a rush, not just in chess, but like in life. I imagine him as just always being like calm and feeling like he's got time for the next thing and the next thing. He can get the delivery at the door and still make it back on time for his match.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I cannot. I had to pick up my matches before we started, and man, I was nervous. But I have the same impression of Bassem. You're right, David. And we should definitely highlight that he was the first ever grandmaster in Africa to reach the 2,700 rating barrier, and he still holds on to that rating and achievement.
Just look at those bishops. Just look at those bishops. What a difference. White just needs to get their queen to the 7th rank, and it'll be checkmate, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see if he'll manage to carry that out, that beautiful 7th rank attack, and that's a win for Bassem. I think with that game, we're going to take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere because this is only the start. We're going to have an hour and a half more of this very same format, and I think what we have witnessed so far, David, is just a teaser. Time trouble. The bar dancing up and down, even if they are super grandmasters, checkmate in one can be missed.
Yeah, but not by the good doctor. Here, he was definitely honed in on rook h7.
He was. And we will be back with the rest of the Pro Chess League Group A action in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome everyone to the 2021 Pro Chess League. This is a brand new season with a brand new format, but many of the same teams and many of the same hosts. David, how do you see so far this new arena format and the excitement of the no increment time control?
Oh my goodness, it is definitely exciting. It's incredibly exciting. I don't love when games end with flag. It's maybe from my own personal like past of getting flagged a lot and it's some kind of trauma or whatever. I don't know. But the excitement level is really high. And you know, when it ends with like a checkmate or a tactic, then I'm very satisfied.
Will we see a checkmate in this one or more of a long maneuvering endgame Hikar with the black pieces against Andreikin?
It's actually some really tricky tactics right now. The idea was that on knight f5, pawn f5, he would then pick up the bishop on g5 because of the pin, because he's even got h4 coming, the square the knight's outposted on. It's the kind of thing that's really, really hard to imagine. To just imagine that in the variation, you're going to move your pawn to the square that was the opponent's outpost. I think that's really the big challenge. Positionally, Hikaru probably has a small advantage here.
I like the knight maneuver that he regrouped his pieces by heading to g6 and now jumping to f4. I'm guessing that white will not just accept that knight sitting on the f4 square, but that means a blunder. F3 check, trying to get the rook on d1, and even if the king stays, bishop h4 check, you lose the rook no matter what. Wow.
And Esipenko goes down to Hikaru, who is number 1 in the individual standings with 18 points.
Oh my. I confused the username.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was calling him Andreikin because it's a very similar name.
Logical
the username
conclusion,
itself.
yes.
But Yesipenko, I think, needs no introduction since this year's Tata Steel Chess Festival, where he beat Magnus Carlsen. So that was a huge win for Hikaru, also taking into account that it's the Russia Wizards that have been leading so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the team standings, we'll have them for you soon. So you'll be able to see that the Wizards are still in first place. Right now, I'm switching to a game between the Wasabis and the Capybaras. The Wasabis are definitely behind the Capybaras. So GM Fernand Hellers here with white, looking to make an impression against Quintiliano R.
This is one of those structures in the Sicilian where even though black hasn't castled yet, it's not too bad because it's very difficult to get to the king. And now we see castle queenside with the knight on e5 holding everything together, especially that f7 pawn that is the base of the pawn chain.
Yeah, knight e5 is sort of like the thing that holds the whole position together. If you randomly took the knight on e5 and the knight on c3 off the board or something like that, you would suddenly find that black was struggling in the middle game. And the castling queenside, I think, is a big choice. In general, these positions can be played with, you know, rook c8 or rook b8, a5, b4, or with castling queenside. So it's a big choice. You don't have to castle. You can just sit on e8 with the king. And he has chosen to sort of tuck his king away. He's probably still moving it all the way to the corner, so the rook's got room on c8 and b8 to still go for an attack.
And it seems that there's something going on now with this knight f3 move, which was not the most accurate for white. It gives the initiative now over to black. Knight c4. I like that knight a lot there on c4, and it also means that knight takes a3 could happen with the c3 knight hanging.
It was well intentioned by white. You know, white wanted to trade the knight on e5, but there were a couple problems with it. The knight on e5 could go to c4 where it was good, and there was a second knight to back it up. So it was like, I mean, in blitz, sometimes you don't have a great idea, so you just try something, but it wasn't quite going to work.
Yes, and especially since there's a second knight as well as the g5 pawn falling, there's no defense for white to hold on to that pawn. So white switches over to the queenside and a potential counterattack. I'm guessing a4 is one of the moves that white has in mind, yet the structure is still pretty solid, and the b7 bishop is an important defender.
Right. White's hit that desperation point, though, where, you know, they have to mix something up. They don't have time. Black's won a pawn. Black's got the bishop pair. So a4 was a great idea, and we'll see if white can find some chances on a6 and b7. with the pieces they have. Knight c3. Yeah, it's not looking easy to play for black now, actually. I mean, now black's up a pawn. Before they weren't, but it's not looking as easy.
Especially with 50 seconds on the clock. It's 50 versus 40 seconds. Again, we're going to see potentially a huge time scramble, and who will be the one with the better pre-moves or checks.
Yeah. Who's got the last check when someone else's clock gets down, and Quintiliano's got an extra 20 seconds. I think
knight is
White's
heading
looking at
toward
knight
a5, but it feels like such a slow-paced game, even though there's no increment. I just hope that the players are aware. They have been playing already for almost an hour by now. I think they should know that there is no increment.
Yeah, I think by now it's probably like pretty clear to them what the pace of this event is. And the rook trades seem to favor black. I think black's probably feeling comfortable here. Ooh, pushing the white queen into really bad territory.
A trade of knights with the c3 knight hanging and a queen c4 guards it. Still, there is a trade, and the e4 pawn can be picked up.
Just simplifying, yeah. And then super safe. And now the flag race.
16 seconds versus 10. I think black is confident with the material and time up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Offering a queen trade as well. Maybe another check. Another check.
Queen e7. Chevet 6. Okay. And black holds on to their couple-second lead there.
It's another point for the capybaras, this time against the Sweden Wasabis.
Chess Fat Bear in trouble here. The king about to get rook e3'd or rook e1'd, I would say. No, he avoids it with a timely resignation.
Timely resignation indeed. That was an unfortunate game for the pandas, who are still very much behind the first and second team. So the Russia Wizards and the Brazil Capybaras are doing really well. It seems that some of the players of the Wasabis and the pandas are having a few issues connecting to the arena and making it to the games, but there's still an hour left. So nothing is decided here.
Yeah. And here we're watching Sandro Mareco, former Argentine Kraken. Very strong. Drops a back rank mate to Esipenko. That's another overlooked mate in one. Are we going to keep a tally of that or not?
I think we should replay that one last move. The queen went to the second rank, active queen move, but forgetting about the back rank. Wow. This is another. We've got a
20-second versus 20-second time scramble. This position would be exciting and classical. It's so complicated. I guess white's just got too many pieces around their king. So Fedoseev is in good shape, but wait, some kind of a pre-move happened. Black took that pawn and white didn't take the rook.
I guess it was a pre-move thing because they are so long time, 15 seconds versus 15 seconds. The white pawn. Whoa! Okay, taking on c6 to promote with a check, but there's another pawn that white is now trying to promote.
White had enough pawns and has enough seconds. There shouldn't be anything that can go wrong for white now.
I guess white could just go and take the pawn with the knight. You can even sacrifice it if you had to. Just keep the rook on the board. But in the end, it's going to be, I think, a checkmate, not a stalemate.
Yeah. Oh, he knows his checkmate technique. Fedoseev. Showing how it's done with the king and rook in 2 seconds.
Impressive, impressive. And just the mess that was happening earlier with the queen-less position for white, but a lot of pieces and pass pawns.
Here's a French defense-ish. I guess the info says it's queen's pawn opening Chigorin variation, but it looks like a French to me.
It does look like that, and the bad bishop is still on the board. We can confirm that, unfortunately.
White seemed to have a great position and then lost the e5 pawn to that rook h5 move and said, I'd rather lose my queen than my, beautiful dark square pawn, right? I'm trying to give you weak dark squares. I'll give up my queen.
That's dedication, but I don't know if it's justified here.
That was pretty intense. This rook is looking for a way to the G file, and black is denying every single route. And white just gives up. It was never going to happen. Sorry, Kira.
Another point for the Wizards there, who are very comfortably in the lead. As we said, in this format, every day in every group, we're going to have 4 teams competing. The first one will qualify directly, and then we're going to have a match between the second and third place team to see which one out of those 2 will make it to the next stage. So this is a quick reminder on our new format. A 2-hour arena is the one that you are witnessing currently, with a no increment time control. It's 3 minutes and no additional time. The highest scoring team will advance, and the second team will play against each other. That is going to be the second part of today's show.
So here we've got Grandmaster Cooley for Ick.
With the white pieces playing for the Wizards against the many consonants in the China Pandas player's name, WDCC. And
what I realized is that this Kuliaik is currently in first place for the individual standings. They've got 1 point more than Hikaru right now. Whoa. So whoever they are, they're quite a blitz player.
Wow. Even ahead of Hikaru.
Yeah, I mean, barely. Hikaru may have scored 2 points while we were talking, but you know.
And it
when I clicked on the game,
it's 2 points for a win. You are right, David.
When I clicked on the game, down here it does say number 1 at the moment still. So you know, we'll have to find out. We'll have to find out who this is before the end of the show. This Kuliaik, and I mean, locked in a tense game here with with Mr. Consonant, as you call them. 2 knights against 2 bishops, and white is going to be looking for an attack against the king side. And as you asked, David, we need to figure out who is the player that's leading overall ahead of Hikaru. Mikhail Damidov, ladies and gentlemen, is cool for Ik. I'm not sure how that's, maybe it's like a ch sound in Russian. Sometimes they write it as a 4, but very strong player and very, very much needing those invitations. We need to see them at more of these super strong events, because his name is not as known as some of the other Russian players on the roster, and yet he is the one that is leading. So this is the Russia Wizards squad. Andrei Yesipenko, Vladimir Fedoseev, and Yevgeny Tomaszewski being the top 3 players, but Damidov, who is one of the lowest rated among the team members, he is the one that is leading currently in the arena ahead of Hikaru. I think the players just agreed to a draw here in this position. And so I think we're going to make 2 little points about this game before we go on. Number 1 is that in this position here, I would have played Queen E7. That's what I was going to recommend. You know, hitting the bishop on B7, getting into black's position. If black takes on D4 a bunch of times, there's a Queen E8 check tactic. That would have allowed Queen G2 checkmate. So that was my chance to join Alexienko and to join Alexiev and the others in the hall of maiden 1 missers. So so that's what I would have done there. It wouldn't have worked out. But do you know why they agreed to a draw in this position?
I don't know. Did they also have a mattress delivery, pizza, sushi?
Good guesses. Good guesses. Here's my guess. My guess is in the arena format, you're trying to score the maximum number of points over 2 hours. You're not trying to win every single game you can get. Oh, I see. You're thinking of the same thing as me now.
That is big brain, because a draw, they split the points, and most likely this would end in a draw. One player or the other. Well, in this case, black with a pair of bishops could have tried, but maybe you play for another 20 moves and it still could be a draw. So considering the practical chances and wanting to get more and more games in the arena format, you are right. It makes sense.
Right. So what matters is not so much whether you win every game or what your percentage is. Obviously, you don't want to lose a million games to players on the other teams because you're raising their points. But one of the main things you're going for is points per minute that you score. So here, neither of these players won the game, but they only used 1 out of 3 minutes each. So 2 minutes and 20 seconds out of a possible 6 minutes they could have spent on this game. So they got 1 point in 2 minutes instead of spending like 6 minutes to try and win 2 points, which might not even be better if they won this game after another 4 minutes.
That is very pragmatic and smart for this format. So both players should be happy with that result. And now they are on to their next game already, trying to get that win.
Yeah. And actually, let's follow Kulichik Demidov for another game. Let's follow Kulichik if I can.
Let's switch to
because he's now another point ahead of Hikaru, right? Hikaru is still playing his game. So maybe this is like a big part of.
Oh, do you think that Demidov managed to play more games?
Maybe he's played 20 more games than everybody else. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to click on him, but it's not showing me his current game. Huh. Draw by repetition.
In the meantime, here's another draw.
Was
Wasabi versus the Wizards.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing how to find Kulichik, but I'll try and check on him later, see if he's making a lot of quick points.
He might have taken a quick break after so many games played. D2 was played here with the black pieces, and that pawn is unstoppable.
Yeah. And if people in the chat are wondering about this format is available to everybody. You can't necessarily get hired on a pro chess league team unless you've proven yourself to be like, a 2,600 plus chess.com blitz player or have an IM or a GM title or something like that. But clubs are able to play club arenas now against each other. So, I mean, our teams played in an arena recently. We were just saying before the show with, 3 or 4 other clubs. And you just get paired against people from the other teams, and you can, rack up as many points as you can in 1 or 2 hours, depending on the format that you choose. And then, compare which team scores more points.
It's a really exciting format for the Pro Chess League, but also, as you mentioned, for any club. Anyone can play in an event like this. Did you manage to find a game, David, or shall we move on to someone else's?
I see that he's playing against Krikor and it, Krikor Mkhitaryan, and it's not letting me click on his game. It's the only game I can't open for some reason. So we're watching the game on the board next, the neighboring board. Consonants from China against Tigra.
This is another important one for the Wizards, who are still very much in the lead, but the Pendles have started catching up a little bit. That is getting closer to the second spot.
There's also Wei Yi versus Hikar right now. Can I click on that? Yeah, sorry, I'm going to switch games, folks. No, I shouldn't have. A draw with, a lot of time left on the clock. Again, why play 100 moves trying to grind out this one, given the format?
True. So Wei Yi with the pawn up in a rook game, but it was a difficult rook game to convert, and agrees to the draw offer of Hikaru.
All right, Elefante 33, Grandmaster El Debs, with 9 points so far in 18th place individually. And shout out to him for being the first person into the arena, giving a friendly hello to all his competitors. He was the first person in there with the good manners and sportsmanship. So I hope that he's also scoring nicely for himself.
That is always great to see, obviously. Always great to see the camaraderie and how these events can bring players together and make new friendships.
He's got the bishop pair here, but frankly, I can't tell who's better. Do you have any strong opinions?
I would think that Black's position is more promising for how White can go wrong easier, but maybe just my assessment of those heavy pieces staring at the White King and the Knight on the board, which is a tricky piece. No time though for Black, 15 seconds.
Okay. So on the board, we'll say maybe it's better for Black, and on the clock, it's going to be White. And that's looking like it's more likely to decide the game right now.
Yeah, especially since Black is not making a move. 3.8 seconds
Queen G3
left.
to trade queens when your opponent has 3 seconds, right? That's basically like checkmate in 1 in this in this format.
Yeah, I think now the check to 0.2 seconds left. That's not enough. Elefante wins the game for the Capybaras. And let's go back to Andrejka's game. That is Yesipenko, and I think we also have his camera to show to our viewers.
All right.
I wonder where he is. I wonder if he is somewhere away at a tournament.
Looks like it. Life of a chess player, life of hotels.
Yeah, that does look like more of a hotel room than his own bedroom.
And
or
does he have
his
his
own
knees
apartment.
up? Is that
Very
is he playing
casual.
with his feet on the
His
mouse instead of
toes.
his hands?
I mean, if he does, he's extremely talented also for gaming skills and keyboard
Yeah.
and mouse management.
I mean, I think it's great to be loose and relaxed probably during an event like this, I would guess. And so I would say, yeah, look, he's definitely not using his hands. He's playing blitz without his hands.
Is it? No, now I think now the hand went back onto the mouse, but that looked like, yeah, look, mom, no hands. Look, mom, no feet.
Right. Playing blitz with your foot. Oh, man. They should do some challenges like that. I bet Chess.com would be into that. Make somebody like Hikaru play bullet with his foot against somebody from PogChamps, right? Make him play against the Pog champion. He only can use his foot and they can use their hand.
And that would give an excuse for a foot cam on the screen. Yes.
Yeah. And if he wins, make him play left-footed the next time.
Our viewers are guessing if he's left-handed, but I'm pretty confident that after he scratched his head, that hand went back to a very same posture.
Oh, so he's got like a
earlier.
hidden mouse far away from
Yeah,
his
I think
computer.
it's
No
just like
cords or
very casual and
anything.
the mouse
It's just
is
like,
there, yeah. I think, but it almost looks
Got
like
it.
he's moving the pieces with his eyesight.
He just cleaned up a high quality positional weakness on B6 while we discussed hands and feet. And that knight on B7 is suffering. I mean, he's just playing a great game. We should perhaps have looked at it. Sorry, everybody.
It's just very impressive overall. How is he making those pieces move? And how does he choose the right square for those pieces?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's streaming personally, but if somebody wants to watch his knees for the whole match, you can check if Esipenko, Andrejka, one of the 2 or 3 highest rated juniors in the world, along with Firuza, if he's got a channel to follow. He's currently
he's got a
in
pass pawn to follow that I see with his B4 pawn break.
the
He wants to create an
breakthrough.
A pass pawn.
The breakthrough. He got tired of positional chess and decided to queen. And
the
Kaka didn't
opponent
want to spend
agrees.
any more of his seconds on this one.
Yeah, with the rook stuck on G5 and the action happening now on the Queenside, it's very much understandable, the resignation.
All right, Tomaszewski, you gave me a clean game before. Oh, and you're up against Krikor, the most famous Brazilian chess streamer. So that'll be a match that lots of people want to watch. Tomaszewski picks up a pawn. He's got knights on light squares against the bishop on a dark square. It's everything I wanted. He wins the rook. Oh, that's a little bit of a tactic, but we'll allow it.
It was a nice tactic though, the knight fork, and if it's taken, there's a second knight to replace the f6 knight and win the rook. I also think that we will soon check in with Tomaszewski as well and the rest of the players. I love to see that we can just take a sneak peek of their location. Are they playing from home? Are they playing from a hotel room? Are they playing as casual as Esipenko was? That was impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the
was
professor, Tomaszewski. I thought for a second it's already Christmas decoration behind him, and maybe it is, or it's just a nice red color, ready for the holiday season soon.
Splash of color. Yeah, and I don't know if he's doing stuff like, flagging people or agreeing to draws when it saves time. I'm not sure he knows what the format is. He may just be like, I'm here to play great chess moves.
And that also makes perfect sense, of course, for someone who is mainly a classical chess player. Tomaszewski has represented the OG Russian team at Olympiads, at European Team Chess Championships, at classical time control a lot of times already.
So now we're watching Roberto Molina trying to defend down 1 pawn against XY Sol, and he loses on time. I think Molina, who has a great score here for the Capybaras, number 7, 7 points, number 28. But I think he may have won the last I'm Not a GM knockout tournament, right?
I believe so.
He's playing a lot of GMs here, but he won a tournament of basically, who's the best blitz playing IM on Chess.com. So I'm sure he's competing without any trouble.
And he won it ahead of the fan favorite Gotham Chess. So that means a lot too, that he managed to take the trophy ahead of Levy's audience.
I'm sure Levy a lot better than me, but I am impressed that he's been going out there and playing like a lot of like competitive games, because I imagine he's got like a bullseye on him. Everybody's thinking like, if I beat him, I can get famous, you know, like
Maybe.
I think it must be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and then just in general, that there's like you said, there's so many fans he has, and obviously they want the best for him and they root for him. But when things don't go right, like in this game, that also means you get a lot of those comments like, Levi, what happened? What's wrong?
Right.
He often tweets those funny comments though. So do follow everyone the Twitter account of Levi Gotham Chess, because you will get some of those hilarious comments from his fans.
When I was at the National Open, an over-the-board classical chess tournament that he was playing at, I overheard some fans like talking in a hallway, and one of them was like was saying something like, "Wait, Gotham Chess isn't the best player at this tournament?" And of course, there were like 30 GMs, really high-rated players. But for people who've gotten into chess in the last year over Twitch, I mean, if your rating is not your FIDE ELO, but like your Twitch followers or something, then you would expect he's the highest rated player there, I guess.
And he's a very strong player, obviously. It's just that some of the more casual viewers wouldn't be aware of how many grandmasters are out there in the world.
All right, the White King searches for shelter. There's an extra knight to try and win this game with, and a pretty good pass D-pawn.
Was that?
That wasn't a high percentage play, that queen. Maybe a mouse slip, yeah.
I guess Black was so low on time and already in a lost position, but I thought Black was just trying to give a few more checks and not give up the queen.
Yeah. All right, so checking the standings below us for a second, everybody, we can see Russia Wizards with 160 points, Capybaras with 105, and the China Pandas with 91. Oh, they've made up a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm. And it's not over. There's going to be one more hour of this exciting format. I believe we're going to take a very quick break, and then we continue with, as we said, a really brand new, exciting, fresh format of the long-running season, the Pro Chess League. Some of the top teams, some of the top chess players are back to compete for their squads. We'll be back in a few minutes with the rest of the action of the arena. Welcome back, everyone, to the coverage of the 2021 Pro Chess League. David and myself are here to cover the remaining hour. Actually, less than an hour remains, David, of this very exciting new format, the Arena. 3-minute time control, no increment we have seen. Flagging skills, we have seen checkmates missed. We have had it all, and yet it's not over.
No, it's not over, and the Chinese team is coming up. I think that some connection problems were probably hampering them at the beginning, it seemed. And now that they're in full gear, how far can they go? Right now, we're watching Wei Yi playing against El Debs here, Elefante, and he's got a great knight on c6, trying to apply some positional squeeze, and he trades it off for a tactic, but black, let's see, rook takes, knight b7, rook d1 is not checked. The white king is on g2.
Yeah, the tactic being that knight fork. At the same time, our bar isn't that happy about it, kind of showing that perhaps there is a chance for black to give up that queen and try to get the two rooks after taking on d8, knight b7, and take on d1 and a1. That is what he must be calculating, because he's taking a lot of time to even decide, am I taking with this rook or the other one? So the trader now might be
queen b5
7
to save in this position, but he plays something else.
Oh, he missed it. He missed it. That was in case of the trade. You are right, David. Queen d5 was the key
for like
move.
rook d4, but it'll lose a it'll lose a whole rook, right? Ooh.
Wow, and that means that now he is cashing in on that tactical pattern that he was going for. We also have now the face cam added to our layout, thanks to our producer for the quick editing behind the scenes. We have been guessing where the players are playing from, and I'm guessing that's not his bedroom. That's a very brave guess from me, I think.
Yeah.
Looks like a club or even a restaurant.
Yeah, actually, my first guess would be a restaurant. And he looks very calm and focused. It doesn't look super easy to control the checks around the white king, but Elefante also only has 14 seconds. So, I mean, he only needs to survive the checks for a couple moves. Queen d4 to d8 would have pretty much equalized the game there.
Yeah, huge time disadvantage for Elefante and the missing pieces too. It might be a chess club if we take a close look at what's behind him. It feels like that's a chessboard, or it's a restaurant where they really like chess. So those are the two options.
that would be the restaurant for me.
Certainly. That was a great game by Wei Yi, who is still so young. I cannot believe that he's not aging. I believe he's still only 21 or 22 years old. Right. He was merely 15 or 16, a teenager, basically, when he won Olympic gold with the team of China at the classical time control chess Olympiad. And that means that he has been around for a long time, yet he started so early. He's still just 21, 22 years old, very young.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching his games for 6 years, probably most of us who keep track of, prodigies and the latest news in the chess world. And that's surprising queen sack from Xu Xiangyu, who could have just picked up a free piece on a3, instead does a fancy move with the queen sack into the two rooks. And
fancy but beautiful checkmate pattern with the two rooks, and the knights are controlling the other two squares on the 6th rank, so the black king has nowhere to go. Xu Xiangyu was one of the key players for the Pandas in the earlier editions of the Pro Chess League, and he's back here fighting for the Pandas. Yeah,
and at the time he was a 2,500 rated GM who had a big impact because there was a rating cap, and he was able to go toe-to-toe with 26 to 2,700 GM, so he was giving them this boost. But now if we look at him with a blitz rating of 2,900, I mean, what an asset in this new blitz 3-0 arena format.
Indeed, very strong player who took an important point there for the Pandas. The gap between the capybaras and the Pandas is closer and closer, and we still have 50 minutes left of the arena.
And here's another match between those two teams. The 4 versus 3 endgame with just knights on the board offers very, very good winning chances to the knight. I mean, if you had 20 minutes on your clock and you were both, gradually working on it. Very good winning chances. We see black managed to win a second pawn. Roberto Molina is in great shape here.
Against Jinshi Bai, grandmaster from the China Pandas. I keep trying to recall the name as Chengdu Pandas because that's how they started. Originally, it was cities who competed against each other. Now it's countries, the China Pandas. The
China Pandas, right? And I've been calling the Wizards the Russia Wizards, who were originally the Moscow Wizards, and I think that's acceptable. But either way, we'll know who we're talking about here. Gosh, I can't resist to watch Sandro Moreira for a second. For the Capybaras, currently number 26 in the individual standings, whereas Serrana is number 9 in the individual standings. Knight, Bishop, Rook, Knight, Bishop, Rook. It's all equal.
But the time is huge for white. How much of an advantage? And that knight fork now will also mean material advantage. That's
probably going to cost him a game. Yeah. Not going to waste his last 30 seconds on that. Serrana says, thank you. Like, I want to keep, winning games after 1 minute off my clock. Yes, please.
Do we still have Mr. Damidov as one of the top players in terms of how many points they have scored and the individual list?
Demidov is still pretty high up there, but Hikaru has taken over the top spot. And here we've got Demidov playing for us on the bottom here with the white pieces. He's got a nice formation of pawns, which you once said was pretty but not good in a previous game. Here, it's definitely not as good as the bishop on g7, so it's a similar.
Yeah, actually, that game of Hikaru, because that was against Hikaru, that game, the diamond pawn formation, it ended up working out somehow, but that was a chaotic game that eventually Hikaru won on time. But what I'm also trying to figure out always, of course, is the location. I'm guessing chess club this time, or he teaches from home. If it's his home, he has a really nice demonstration board on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason that Kulitschek was putting all those pawns on dark squares was to try and keep this dark squared bishop at bay, but we see that Joshua Chick from the Pandas has managed to confuse that structure, and now there's some room for black to play for a win and maybe attack the white king eventually. He's got to keep his eye on this pawn, but he doesn't really want to lose this one. It's a tricky position, but twice as much time. So as long as black manages to keep it complex, it should be enough to win at least on time. So he wants to trade b5 for e6 to sort of simplify the task a little bit. Now the queen's going to come to f4. Yeah, I guess just one g pawn's enough to win this game, probably. I don't think black will go for the perpetual, but does give a few checks to gain time, in a sense that black is the one who's choosing the check and white always has to react within the next few seconds. Yeah, and here on e7, he's got queen e4 prepared by having given those checks. But it's mostly looking like white's going to run out of time. It's not that easy to... Bishop g7 now. Oh no, black can go still one square up. There's a good move. Joshua Chick took the time to find all the good moves. And now trades the queens with 25 seconds on the clock. Did it. Bravo. Stopping one of the top scorers of the Russia Wizards. That was an important game for the Pandas. Club standings now a 7-point gap between second and third, and much bigger gaps between first and fourth places. Yeah, just a reminder on the format that the first team of today's group will qualify immediately. The last one, unfortunately, cannot continue the tournament, but the second and third place teams, they will play in a very exciting ladder format team match. That will be the second part of our broadcast. Hikaru, with over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 14 seconds on his clock, cleans up this game with a mating attack just directly against the white king's pack rank. If the rook moved somewhere, there would be rook e1. And let's check back to Xu Xiangyu. He's down a knight against Hikaru's former teammate, Fedoseev, who's going to clean this up with a minute left on the clock. Man, it's so luxurious to have a minute or two when your opponent has 5 seconds, huh?
Minutes more, winning king and pawn in game. How do they do it?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't do it. That's why I don't play in this.
I thought my question was too deep to an answer. You were very much in thought, David.
I'm sitting there like,
welcome back.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it.
It's an existential crisis. I don't know, but I can't.
Yeah, you broke my wires with that one.
Sorry.
It's all right. Tell us how to win this position for white. I assume white's got the advantage. Actually, B2's hanging. So maybe the first question is, who is better?
Yeah, the bar is voting for white, but I agree with you that because of that knight on a4 and the white queen having to hold on to the b2 pawn, it doesn't feel that obvious who is even playing this for a win.
The first thing I saw in this position was, checkmate on g7 if we could just trade those bishops. But the game's going a different direction. Oh, white is going after that bishop still, trying to weaken g7, I think, partly. Maybe the next move might be bishop e5, because you want to get rid of this. Oh, but knight d7 stopped it. You want to get rid of that bishop on f6, but you also don't want to open the second rank for defense necessarily. So, okay, white's looking at queen f4.
It feels like black it cannot hold everything together with those two knights against the pair of bishops. And this.
Oh, you could have just taken that pawn. There's no way that bishop needed to retreat.
Yeah, it felt like it was time to go all in.
Come on, we can give checkmates. You can calculate for a second. You're a GM. Do it.
Now, at least it's not me trolling these poor GMs. No one will want to compete in the next one because we are giving them such a hard time.
I mean, white Krikor's laid out this game fantastically. Look, he just retreated and his opponent resigned. The position was so terminal.
Maybe that was the stronger move. It's you know what? I don't even need to sacrifice. That's how much better my position is.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. Just let your opponent know that they have nothing. And maybe that's safer, because if you go for bishop takes f5, every now and then you misfire, you get something wrong.
True, very true. This is another
Although I don't think we were wrong about that checkmate.
I think the checkmate was very correct, but it seems the retreat was even stronger, at least for the resignation from the opponent. This is another game I was going to say between the wasabis and the capybaras. And I would also like to check in with one of the top players of the Russian team, Fedoseyev, if we can check his game at a later stage. All
right, let me do that. That was our first time seeing an opening in an hour. It was this here now.
We usually tune in the middle game or end game. It's true.
All right, so you want which
big
one
fish.
Did you want?
Big fish.
Big fish. Okay, we'll go to big fish.
Big fish is one of the biggest fish out there on the Russian
let me
roster.
go to big fish.
Oh, we can
His
go
game
to
is
his
password
game later
protected right now against Roberto Molina. It must be a big deal. Can you see it? I'm not being allowed to.
Really? It's such an exclusive game. They don't let IMs to watch.
Yeah. There's a bouncer. There's a bouncer telling me you're not worthy.
They let me in. They
let you in.
They let me join the party. I'm sorry, David.
Okay.
I'm really sorry.
It's good to know that it's just me, though. That's the proof that that you can get in. All right, so let's pick a party that I can attend. This game looks very exciting to me. Right here, with the knights fighting for good squares in the center. Black has the bishop pair, but their pieces are more awkward.
Yeah, that pawn break with d5 looking dangerous now. If only on d1 we had a rook instead of the queen, it would be even stronger, but there wasn't time to get it.
I do wish for that. I do love a nice rook sort of just suddenly opening up and the opponent's position gets bad.
Black is spending quite a lot of time on that response takes with the pawn in the end.
Right. Did Black have other options there? Because I didn't notice them. Maybe there was some calculation. Maybe there was some calculation of rook to d7 here for Black. And white can take the knight, then recapture with the rook, And then either play c7, c8, or play rook d7 if the queen goes to c7 and pick up the bishop.
May have been
But
the
I would have probably just
calculation.
taken the pawn in 1 second.
Yeah, I also thought that was the only option. Black did take it, but after quite some time. And now
Wow.
knight e2, knight 4, cashing
And
in.
picking White apart suddenly.
Maybe that's
And
why they were calculating. They saw the win
They
already.
saw all this.
Yes.
The queen
They
can come into
did.
e2. And this is all over. White just can't defend the back rank against all these pieces.
Wow.
Now, this I did get to do once on the correct side of it. I got to do this where I brought the queen into this square and my opponent simply couldn't stop the rook from coming to the first rank. This is a great feeling. This one I recommend. You can just go rook d1 here anyway, I think.
I like this move a lot. Yeah, trade and
Can't
pin
take the
everything.
queen. Yeah.
Not
Bravo.
much time though. Hello?
Yeah, and White times out.
Oh, well, happens. The position was already losing too, but I was expecting resignation, if not for what you mentioned, that every player will want to try to get in as many games as possible in the arena format. We still have 39 minutes left overall.
Okay. Serrana cleans up another one. And in the individual standings, he is in 8th place now.
Hikar here with the black pieces against
Let's
WDCC.
check out another Hikaru classic. This game will
like
be
a lot the
talked
knight
about
on
for at
e5.
least minutes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I really like whenever there's a knight in the center, whether it's on the e5 square or d5 square. I really like knight outpost, and the fact that this the g7 bishop is strongly pointing at White's camp. There could be tactics on the diagonal.
Yeah, the b1 bishop is pretty limited. I feel like White relies on knight d5 and e d5 to try and do something on the king side. So maybe h4, h5 is something that White should also find time for as part of that story.
Now trading on c1, I wonder if White will take back with the rook or the knight or the queen, because there were 3 options, and that's why they thought for a while.
That was the weirdest of the options, I'm going to say. Wow, relying on the knight to stop rook c1, it feels awkward or worrisome. Hikaru lets the bishop out on b1 for a second and then sets up with f5 and says, we're not going to let you through.
And now going for the d5 pawn, very instructive. At the same time, it feels like White, can White hold on to it? I'm just...
White really needs a really good move.
White gave up the pawn but got the c5. Maybe
Knight
this was the
F4,
trick.
The rook stops, knight e6, g4.
And now g4.
Hey, he did it. He found some really, really strong moves.
Yeah, and the b1 bishop that we were saying how limited it was is now the attacking piece targeting the black king.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd been thinking if Black's H pawn were on H7, the bishop B1 would be really dead. But here there's still a little room to mess with it.
So the rook, very limited options now for that black rook. If you want to keep protecting F5, or if not, now that the knight comes back, F5 is hanging again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see how Hikaru keeps his advantage here. And, you know, the proof of that is that even Hikaru is thinking about how to keep his advantage here. So White can trade and win back the pawn. And yeah, now Hikaru's got the bishop pair. Okay, so he found a way to keep playing the game. Rook to the second rank is possible.
Yeah, it feels like knight to h5 did give that option to Hikaru.
Bishop
F3,
logical. Yeah.
Yeah, to try to trade. And now rook e2 attacking both the f2 and a2 pawns.
Does rook d1 sort of work?
Oh, this feels like this cannot be. I thought maybe the rook check for White made some sense because there were knights fork options if the king were to come to the 6th rank, but this is now too much.
Brought
too much.
the knight
The black
to a
king
much
is
better
like
square, but
yeah,
too much.
and Hikaru wins And that was a very well played endgame. I thought that white had a chance for a second when there was an option of giving a check on the 7th rank and get some knight fork ideas in, or otherwise the black king had to go back to a back rank. But overall, it was a very instructive game, and the bishops proved stronger this time, stronger than the knight.
Yeah. So right now, with the second most points in the entire arena behind Hikaru is Fandorin, aka Maxim Chigayev, unless I've gotten things wrong. I feel like Chigayev formerly played as a free agent for the Armenia Eagles, even though he's a Russian grandmaster.
Yes, that is correct.
I think that was his former team, and you know, he had a fantastic performance rating, something in the 2750s. And boy, is he coming through here in Blitz today.
He is. He is just capturing now C7. He need to keep an eye out for those 2 pass pawns of white.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to be compensating for a full rook.
It's close.
Or is it?
It's close. There went one of the
Actually,
rooks. There goes the second
back.
with check.
What? This cannot be.
Just come back and defend everything.
He
and
gave
resign.
up 2 rooks in 2 moves.
He was supposed to trade his 1 rook for 2 of those pawns somehow. Instead, he traded 2 rooks for 1 of those pawns, and that doesn't do it.
No, that does not. And he seems puzzled about what has just happened. He was up a rook, and then he was down a rook 2 moves later and in a lost position. Sudden turn of events.
Yeah. Here's Big Fish. They let me watch him this time.
You got the pass, David. It's all right.
Yes. Somebody
Quite
heard.
some pressure. Yeah.
Somebody heard I was complaining. They're like,
they heard you crying outside the door, and they were like, "We'll let
that's
him
too pathetic.
in."
We can't listen anymore.
There's quite some pressure in the center, so black does trade on f3 to get rid of some of the attacking pieces that were putting pressure on the e5 pawn.
Yeah. This double king pawn structure is one that I should be better at. Anyone playing e4, e5 should have some ideas how to maneuver in these positions, and I know very, very little.
I'm sure that by very little, I mean you have studied it for months, David. You're down talking your knowledge here. You're the one here with all the chess wisdom, and I'm here with the stories and the observation that isn't the same style of room as Yesipenko's. Are they playing the same event, Fedoseyev and Yesipenko?
I'm not. I have a very, very poor visual memory, but I think it's a different hotel. I don't think they're in the same place. That's what I'm gonna.
But then very similar style. I thought that I caught here a clue that they're in the same hotel.
Okay, you're probably right.
Maybe not. It might be like a completely different side of Russia.
So f3. Yeah, black can probably eventually play b5. I mean, they're being restrained from it by the pressure against a5 this whole time, but I feel like eventually black could find a time to play b5. And I'm going to prefer the bishop over the knight a little bit here, just because I don't see a second great square for that knight. Oh, getting rid of it. I approve.
Yeah, heavy pieces. Well, we remain with heavy pieces, but no b6 pawn after c5.
Oops. Did black have to give that pawn? What was going on here? Was that? No, I think it was unforced.
A blunder.
Yeah.
In the end, I think we have a side by side, even if it's an unofficial camera, because it still is, of course, Fedoseyev's original camera. But I want to see that side by side with Yesipenko's, if that's all right with our producer.
We're doing investigative image comparisons now. As
checkmate,
black
threat on G2
checkmate.
and H2. We have seen that checkmate a few times now.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna miss the mate. They know what's going on here. Wait. Oh,
Look at that. Look at that, David. Team Russia. I bet that's the same hotel.
Yeah.
Look at that. Just different lighting, but it's the same bed frame, pillows, the lamp. it has to be the same unless all hotels in that area look the same. But no, I think they are literally in the same place.
Okay.
Maybe
well,
roommates.
maybe they're at the European Club Cup then. That's that's a tournament that a lot of strong players are at that starts tomorrow, I think. Or well, I mean, I don't know. It depends on time zones, but you know, it starts in like, I guess for them it's nighttime, and they'll probably get up and have a tournament to play.
Yeah, true, very true. We managed to figure it out, and we wish the best for them for the European Club Cup.
This whole phase here, by the way, for those, you know, attentive to the position as well as the hotel, this whole position, Blackspin, I think, had the chance to give perpetual check. And I believe it was a little bit greedy of Big Fish to take the A5 pawn after taking the B6 pawn. I think that B6 pawn was enough.
Ooh, 0.1 second when Black made a move, but eventually you're going to end up losing on time with no increment.
No increment.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
I guess Fedoseev at that rate thought that this or that way, he is so much ahead in time as well. It didn't matter that much. But I agree with you. I agree with you that he could have played differently. We're going to come back with the games of Team Russia, but also Brazil and China, who are fighting so close for the second and third place. And the Sweden Wasabis, if they can make a miraculous comeback to get the third place, that's all up for grab for the last half an hour of the arena. So we're going to take a very quick break, and then we are back with the last 30 minutes of this exciting new format. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to this year's Pro Chess League with a brand new format. We are in the final phase of the first ever Arena Royale for the Pro Chess League. Group A is here to fight for the qualification. The Russian Wizards are looking good with the 247 points they have collected so far. I think they seem to be almost guaranteed at this rate that they are making it without any further match. But the second and third place teams will need to play against each other after the arena is over.
Yeah. Right now, one of the things that I was just clarifying is the team that finishes in second place will get to have white in the first game of that kind of ladder match. So there is an advantage there, you know, and as the games go, you're sort of like trying to eliminate the 4 players on the other team. So every extra white could be what you need there. So it does matter to finish in second place. And that is really, really close right now between the capybaras.
Very close indeed. The capybaras had a bigger lead earlier on, but the China pandas are closing that gap. And with half an hour to go, I think if we now focus on some of the games of those two teams, the capybaras and the pandas, and see if the pandas can take over on that second place to have the white pieces on the knockout ladder format.
Yeah, so let me see. Here's a game between one player from each of those teams. Elefante, XXY Soul, or as those who've been watching for the last hour and a half will know, El Debs and Xu Xiangyu. And
Queen E1 looks a bit passive, trying to attack G4, but G3 comes with a tempo.
Can you just play Queen G4 and get the queens off because you hate your position?
I guess that would be a good attempt to not get checkmated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other option for black was F5 last move, right? To try and keep white's knight badly placed. But black spent a little bit of time on this, so maybe there's some calculation going on, like queen. Oh, white brings out the knight. Okay.
Tricky knight that is, almost made it to F6 with a knight fork, but F2, the capture on F2 was a check.
Mm-hmm. So now black's threatening. Well, I don't know if H2 does anything. White king could just move aside.
The knight on F2 is, strangely enough, a good defender, at least guards the H1 square.
It looks like the GMs are just judging that queen G4 is a bad idea. I guess they figure that after you trade the queens and the opponent turns the open file into the second rank, that it's just a really tough endgame.
Not much time left for Elefante. If we go back to the current position with 12 seconds on the clock, ends up trading. Is that the position then?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Knight H6 to F5 was available, right?
I thought so.
Black played F5, yeah. C4, I would say, yeah.
Dominant position for the black pieces with the second rank rook, and this G3 bishop not letting out the king either.
If only you could distract the rook with a king sack on D5 and then get back rank mate.
It didn't feel like it was in a hurry to go for the rook trade because it did let out the white king, but maybe black just counts on the fact that it simplifies the position and he's so much ahead in time.
Right. Yeah. And Xu Xiangyu collects it for China, and they are 17 points below Brazil. So Brazil has stretched that lead a tiny bit here.
Yeah, but this was an important one for the pandas indeed, a 2-point win over the capybaras. So that adds now all up to a 15-point gap with 21 minutes to go.
Mm-hmm. And here Billy Kimba just could have tried to checkmate the white king, but just defends their own king, saying, you know, 2 pieces against a rook and an unstoppable G-pawn. The simplest thing is just to take white's queen off the board, and then they can resign, which they do. All right. Krikor against, do you say Kaka was Bai Jinshi?
Yes.
Ooh, classic opposite bishop endgame. The target is F7. Black needs to very carefully defend F7.
Rook C7 indeed to strengthen the 7th rank. Very solid. This extra pawn for white though
Yeah.
And also time advantage is not going to be easy to hold.
So white's going to try and threaten to get a pawn to f6. And if black trades, they're going to still try to get a pawn to f6. With the pawn on a dark square and a bishop on a light square, white could create sort of mating nets around the black king.
Mm-hmm.
E5.
20 minutes left of the entire arena. We do have now a timer above my camera. That means that in 20 minutes, all games will be aborted. So the players can only cash in on whatever position they have within the next 20 minutes, but not later.
Yeah. Game drawn. That was a great defense by Krikor, actually. I'm going to back up just a few moves so people can see what this was about, why the game suddenly petered out, because very often positions like this are eventually lost by black. What happened was he threatened a checkmate with rook f2, king g5, f6, king h4, rook h2.
Wow.
And that kind of forced white's hand because they needed a flight square for the king. So white played e5, and then black was able to take this without a white pawn ever coming to f6 and trade off another pawn, and there was nothing left to play for.
That was a very impressive tactical pattern out of the blue in an endgame where everything seemed just calm. Suddenly there was a checkmate idea and the queen taken on h6.
Yeah. Black choosing to defend rook and bishop against queen rather than lose an exchange. After that knight c7 fork, but this queen is close to mopping up. Queen c7, rook e8, so white just gets rid of the a pawn. Now, how to win this? That's a good start. Cramping those light squares. But I admit that I would be completely not confident how to win this.
Not an easy one. Grandmaster Zhao Jun, I believe here, chess fed bear with the black pieces against Sandro Mareco, the top player of Argentina.
Yeah, like where are we? Oh, no, never touch that pawn. White wasn't making progress. Don't touch your pawn, right?
Yeah. Is white making progress now, though, giving up the G pawn? But what's the follow-up?
I don't see the pro. Oh, king.
Oh, the king walk. Will the king make it? Will the king make it?
But what does that even
F5?
threaten?
You need to make it to G6 though, but the queen either occupies the square or the black king can prevent white from getting there.
Huh.
In any case, white will win on
supposed
time. But it was certainly a tough position to hold. Black had to be defensive both on the board and also hurry up on the clock.
You think that would have been a fortress?
I think so. If they had time,
Yeah.
I would assume that this is a draw, but with no time on the clock to constantly watch out for the threats.
Here's a Spanish player. Do not read it. Playing for the Wasabis.
Do not read it. I'm going to read your username. That's Carlos Suarez, international master from Spain, playing for the Wasabis indeed.
Well, it looks like he's pretty close to a big upset against Alexei Sarana here.
With the extra pawn and very active pieces, it certainly looks like that indeed. Also in control of the time, although 33 seconds, checks coming in.
So queen c6, maybe black would just take on e3, right? If white tried to cover the king with the queen here. Checks coming in, 29 seconds each. At some point, fatigue's probably like a factor, right? I mean,
yeah, they have been playing for already an hour and a half straight. There's no breaks. It's just constant blitz games back and forth.
Right. We take our little breaks and they don't even get one.
They don't.
They play right through the commercials. Okay, well, this is not at all easy to win for white. Carlos is still sweating it here.
But white with the checks is gaining time in a sense that you always need to get out of the checks. You cannot remove as black.
And then occasionally not checking so that black can't pre-move by predicting what you're doing every time. Oh, he's allowing f2 with check, actually.
And that's
white's got control of it.
Sarana not being very happy about what happened in this endgame, but also I think was going to lose on time. So this was both on the board and on the clock.
Wow.
that the lower rated player, the underdog here, do not read it, has won.
A thorough upset. That said, Carlos is 1 point away from a 2,800 blitz rating. So yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
Hikar against Tomaszewski?
Oh, we definitely need to tune in.
Does he have rook f6 with like just checkmate and 2 threatened? Pretty much. Rook f6. If black takes it, then check and mate on g7. And rook f6, if the black king runs away, you play rook f8 check and you still get to g7. And even after he avoids the check, Hikaru still gives the sack, still threatening the mate. And that looks like...
Checkmate next move with queen g7 after king f7. So Tomaszewski resigns. What a beautiful checkmate pattern.
Thumbs up on that attack. Even when you see it coming and spend a whole move defending, there's no defense against that rook sacrifice.
Yeah, that's crazy. Such a strong attack on the long diagonal queen bishop battery. And that means another important point for the capybaras. Hikar is playing for the Brazil capybaras.
Checking back in on Demidov and his rook endgame technique here. He's counting on the king to attack the g-pawn, but Quintiliano says nope. And this is still within the drawing margin for black, in my opinion. And I would also say, if you're trying to win these kind of endgames, you shouldn't trade the h-pawn for the g-pawn. Like, you want every little weakness available to attack. Don't go to the h-file. That won't win either. So Hikaru, 10 minutes ago, I noticed that his lead in the individual standings had increased to 10 points. And somehow in the last 10 minutes, it's increased to 20 points. I don't know if Fedoseev and Chigayev went for, like, you know, a quick snack in the hotel there, but somehow he scored an unreasonable amount of points in the last 10 minutes.
It's also true that for the Russian team, they don't need the points that badly. They can sit back and take a minute or two to relax or grab a snack, literally, because they are qualifying. There's quite a large margin already, their lead.
The Russians have a player in the top 10 who won't count for their team score. The team score counts your top 6 scores. The Russians have 7 players in the top 9 right now. Only Wei Yi and Hikaru up there with them at the moment.
That's a very dominant performance by the Russia Wizards. But a reminder on our format that wait, what happened?
White won this game. The king got into f6, and the threat was rook b6 to e6.
Nicely played. It wasn't an easy to convert endgame.
Yeah, somehow the black didn't. I was looking at the standings when black let that white king get up, but black needed to not let the white king get to such an active space.
That was a very beautifully executed endgame technique. And as you were saying about the format, if we just bring up our slide for a second, that the Russian team is very safe to qualify at this rate. I think we can say that they are moving on to the next stage. But the second and third place team, they will face each other today, right after the arena format, in a knockout ladder match. That's going to be 4 players versus 4 players. They will choose the top 4 players they want to have on the roster, and then the 4 players will be in order of the points they scored in today's arena. It is going to be a knockout ladder match, meaning that the last man standing will win it all. You need to eliminate board by board the opponent's players. It's going to be exciting, and right after our arena. So this time, you see the timer here, 11.5 minutes left from the arena, but then we're going to see the match between the second and third place team. Yeah.
And with 11 minutes left here, it is basically a lock that we will be seeing Brazil versus China in that battle.
The question is if within 11 minutes, can they score those 20 points, the pandas, to get the white pieces, or is that already mathematically almost impossible?
Right, so that they could take over white. I think that's possible to score that many points as a team in 20 minutes. I think
especially since the win is 2 points. So a reminder that a draw is 1 point in our format and a win is 2 points. in that
Actually,
sense.
for sure, if you count that Hikaru scored that many points in 10 minutes by himself, a team could certainly do it.
True. It's just that the capybaras would also need to stop scoring. So it will favor the pandas if they are paired against each other, because then they are scoring if they can, while also stopping the opponent's team from getting points.
But an important rule, you can't get paired against people from your own team. Oh, sorry. You mean if they get paired against
each
the capybaras and beat the capybaras? Yes.
Yeah.
As Roberto Molina just did here, he beat Xu Xiangyu, actually one of the highest scoring Chinese players. That's bad news for the Chinese team trying to catch up.
Yeah, because that was one of those games where we say it's 2 points for the winner, and also you're stopping the opponent's team from scoring in that game.
And I feel like we're getting some rematches by now. Like we're getting some players of the capybaras and the pandas, because I keep clicking on them against each other because of how close they are in the standings. And I feel like, oh, that's tricky. Rook F3, G7. I feel like some of them are getting rematched. They're like, I've played this person before.
Yeah, since we have four teams, and on each team the roster can be up to 9 players, I think we do see maybe not only just a rematch, but a third time game as well, in case they are on similar points. Yeah.
White's down a pawn here, but actually trying to find a way to win the game. Actually, White's looking to create some threats here. To use the strongest pawn on the board is G6, right? So gave him some hope, but Black defends it. And let's see. That game's near the end. Should be a draw, and it is.
And they are
Amin Bassem versus Hikaru. Down to just a second or two.
This was the previous one. Will this also be 2 kings?
And flagged.
Whoa.
The position is a draw, because if the Black king goes for H3, White can always attack the Black G pawn from behind. So this 1 versus 1 pawn endgame is a theoretical draw here
but it's true that because White was so low on time, I didn't realize that Bassem was running out of time. Of course, Hikaru doesn't trade the last pawn. As long as you have a pawn on the board and the opponent runs out of time, you're winning the game.
Yeah. Ooh, a strategic endgame. And I think people are getting the structure more and more with the popularity of the London, the exchange variation against the Caro and stuff like that. This is a structure that people are playing more and more. And here I would say that it favors White nicely with a little bit of the A file and the C5 outpost.
I like that outpost a lot, and it's so difficult to chase the knight away. You can't push the B pawn because then the A6 pawn falls. Only 7.5
Although here White's relying
left,
on
no time is left.
Tactic.
David.
Rook takes A6.
Yeah, for this game they will manage to finish it, but for some of the last games we might see a player or two escaping because we are running out of time for the arena.
Yeah, and when you can't score any more points, then if you're in a bad position, you can just drag the game out so that at least your opponent doesn't get any points, right? And then you can escape from a bad position without losing. The game won't be rated either. Just a full escape is possible. 1 escape per arena.
1 escape per arena, it's important. But there's also the other side of the coin when you are winning and don't have enough time to finish that last game. But that's how it goes in terms of the format. We now have it also again as a reminder on our screen that the 2nd and the 3rd place team will advance to a knockout ladder match that's going to happen today. After a few minute break, the players will eventually return, and that is going to be a match between the capybaras and the pandas. So Brazil capybaras and China pandas will face off today in a few minutes, if we take a look at how much time is left from the arena, and then they will have a short break to come back to the ladder match. And only one of those 2 teams will make it to the next stage of the Pro Chess League.
And Molina's having a great event and playing a great defense here in this game. He found his way to that E5 pawn break to not give White all the time they wanted on the queen side. And it's like the tiniest edge still for White with those split pawns on the king side. Slightly more active rook, but Molina's hanging in there very well.
hanging in there indeed, and the time situation he needs to hang in too, though, because the time advantage white has already twice as much time as black. So difficult position to defend, but also not much time for it. So I think this is going to be an important win for the pandas, although the gap is still so large. Oh, nice. Wait a second. I thought that the pandas had it in this game, but that tactical pattern wins the piece.
Yeah, white was in a tricky situation. You know, they couldn't play rook d6, which would be the normal technical move, getting out of the way of the king because of knight c4, right? And then they're thinking like, oh, rook b6, knight c4. And I think the correct move was maybe rook a6, but then knight c4 wins your b pawn, so white's not happy about it. And so finally he came up with a different approach, b3, stopping knight c4, and black had another threat. And Roberto's going to pick up another big point. He's having a great day here.
The tables. I was just going to highlight that the gap is still quite large, and with only 4.5 minutes left of the entire arena, I don't think the pandas can catch the capybaras. But these games also matter for the later stage psychologically, because these players are likely to face each other also in the knockout format. So the top four, tables turning again.
What?
And no time for black to defend.
The pawn's taken. The knight loses the endgame. 2 queens. No.
Oh, well, Roberto tried and had chances even to win at some point, but in
you know
the
what's
end...
crazy? King h3, queen f2 might be a stalemate here, right?
Yeah, if queen f3, that would be a stalemate indeed. What a game this has been. Ups and downs constantly. In the end, it was a win for the pandas. Hikar here with the white pieces against another player of the pandas. That's Wei Yi, one of the strongest players of China. Still so young, as we highlighted. He was on the Olympic team at the tender age of 15, 16, getting an Olympic medal, a gold that is. And now he's facing Hikar with the black pieces.
Yeah, and we are watching, for today, we're watching the only 2 non-Russians in the top 10.
True.
So these have been the best players for, well, Hikaru's been the best player overall today by a big margin, and Wei Yi has been the best performer for the pandas today.
What's exciting, David, I just thought about the format, that these are the 2 players who will be at the knockout ladder format between the capybaras and the pandas. So don't go anywhere, because if you want to see Hikaru fight, if you want to see Wei Yi, if you want to see the rest of the squad, they will play against each other in a knockout format, where the last man standing, in case of the capybaras, 100% Hikaru will be on board 1. And that is, you will need to knock out Hikaru in order to beat the capybaras. And for the pandas, you will need to knock out Wei Yi to beat the pandas.
Yeah, that was maybe the preview. Those are going to be the top guns for each of those teams. The Russian Wizards, by the way, their 11th place players moved up to place 10. So they really have pushed everyone except for Wei Yi and Hikaru out of the top table. They will have 2 top 10 performers who don't count in their final team tally of points. And Hikaru has pushed his lead even further. I mean, it's crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. And I think people a lot of times probably expect Hikaru to be the favorite in a blitz event. That probably happens. So they may say like, oh yeah, Hikaru won. He was the best player. Oh yeah, he won. He was the best player. But to win by 25 points right now,
ahead of some of the very strong opposition, such as Wei Yi, other 2,700 rated grandmasters. So yeah, it's very impressive that he keeps proving to be so dominant in fields like this too, constantly, every single week. It's not just by default that he wins. You always need to prove that you're the best.
Right. Because I mean, and even Hikaru, he must have days where like he ties for first, or he wins by like 2 points, like 25 points. That even for him, that's like an amazing day, you know, and nobody should take that for granted.
For sure. And we shall see if it means that for the Capybaras, it doesn't matter if they lose a game or two, because Hikar will be the final boss to beat for the Pandas if they want to beat the Brazil Capybaras. As for the Russia Wizards, I'm extremely impressed that they are leading with an over 100-point gap. 100.
Yeah, I mean, the Wasabis, I think, were riddled by some significant disconnection issues, just like China, and those never got sorted out. We haven't seen many of their players in the games that we've been watching, and I think they don't even have the full team,
the full roster.
connected at
That's
any point here.
unfortunate. Yeah, we were trying to see the games of Nils Grandelius, but I don't know if Nils managed to make it in the end to the event.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. And my apologies to everybody for counting the points wrong. It was a 15-point gap for Hikaru, not 25 points. The arena finishes with am I going to get it right? 104-point lead. Take it away, Anna. I give up.
The Russia Wizards dominating today's group stage, but don't go anywhere because the Russian team advances. The Wasabis, unfortunately, will be eliminated, but the second and third place team, that is the Capybaras and the Pandas, will be back in just a few minutes. They will now have a short break to decide who are the 4 players they want to have on the team. Those 4 players will be placed in the order of their performance of today, depending on how many points they scored. So for the top board, that means Hikaru versus Wei Yi. But we're going to start with board 4. Board 4 will need to be eliminating the other board 4, and so on, going up and up. As we said, the final bosses being Hikaru and Wei Yi. It's going to be a blast to see which one of these 2 teams will manage to qualify in the knockout stage.
Yeah, can't wait.
So we're going to let, I think, the players to now think about this for a few minutes, and then we are back with the rest of the show. Don't go anywhere, because if you thought this was exciting, what's coming up next is going to be even more thrilling in a ladder knockout stage. Welcome back, everyone, to our show. Before we head over to the all-decisive match, let's take a look at these beautiful pieces of merch. Since I covered the PogChamp shows, many of them, together with Danny Rensch, who pointed out that he really dislikes the sample on the right side. I recommend it. That's a bestseller. Danny doesn't like it. Get it so that you can show Danny that you disagree with him. It's go.chess.com/merch. Pick up your favorite items and wrap that chess rock style. I think the right one. David, what do you think? Which one would you wear?
Probably the one that's all black and white. I'm not sure which direction is right or left for our viewers, but yeah, I think I'd go with black and white.
Don't get tilted. Important message there. And that's an important message also for our players, because we are about to start the second phase of today's show, Group A. But between the second and third place team, the Capybaras and the Pandas, only one of them will make it to the next phase of the Pro Chess League. Only one of them can qualify. And the way this will be decided, is that we're going to see a ladder match between 4 players of each team. You see that the final boss on the Capybaras team is Hikaru Nakamura. Final boss on the China Pandas team is Wei Yi. So eventually you need to be going from the bottom all the way up and knock out the players of the opponent's team.
Yeah. And right now I'm feeling great. I'm completely satisfied after 2 hours of what was basically an all-you-can-eat buffet of Grandmaster Chess. I mean, there were just so many good players. Like everywhere I clicked was an amazing game. And I feel like I don't even need anything more. I'm satisfied. And then there's a dessert. But I think, and I was thinking about this because I'm also a team manager, I think right now for the managers of these two teams, this is the worst moment of the day.
Must be really nerve-wracking indeed.
Tension, right? Because one blitz game, can sort of eliminate your team and then you don't go on to the quarterfinals. And I just know that come Monday when my team plays, I'm going to be a wreck. I'm going to be a wreck. I'm going to be rolling around, writhing on the ground with nerves.
So today you are enjoying the dessert, but maybe the next time it will be the other way around. We hope the best for the captains of both the Capybaras and the Pandas. And we also hope that the players are not too nervous because the games are about to start. We're going to see first board 4, Sandro Mareko against Bai Yinchi. And whoever wins that game will stay and face then board 3 of the opponent's team. The Petrov, the Russian defense, is on the board.
Knight takes f7. Knight takes f7. I think it's called the Cochrane. Come on, do it, Sandro.
They're playing the classical line actually with knight c3, which will often lead to castle queenside. And this time, though, important that there is increment, so we will not see flagging skills anymore that much, taking the main role of the last phase of the games. It's 3 minutes, but with a 2-second increment, the games.
Yeah. Now, this is a modern line, and I learned chess before the modern era. So this is a position which I don't properly appreciate, but apparently White's got a nice opening advantage and great chances for a kingside attack, even though they're just plunking everything in the middle of the board. But I'm not really sure why. So we'll see if Sandro can teach me something today.
Yeah, I think since Fabiano was such a big ambassador for the Russian defense, or is still an ambassador for the Russian defense, in a way that he prepared it also for the World Chess Championship match. And this has become an even more trending opening, so to say. And the approach that White has picked with the knight c3 move, doubling the pawns but leading to opposite side castling, it can definitely spice up the not so spicy symmetrical position of the Petrov.
Right. So right now, I would feel pretty comfortable with black. I'd want to, I don't know, put my queen on d6 and play rook e8. I suppose I have to decide what to do with my bishop. Maybe I want an advantage. Maybe I'll play bishop h5 to g6 if I'm Bai Jinchi. Okay, he plays the simple way. Trade, queen d7, rook e8. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's White going for?
Trading all the minor pieces, then developing the queen. White is taking time to decide whether to capture with a pawn or with the rook on d4.
Yeah. I mean, with so much simplification, it was time to get rid of your doubled pawn, I think. It looks very equal.
Very equal, which reminds us that if it's a draw, the players, I believe, will continue fighting until one wins.
I think they both get eliminated. Let's find out
This
what
time
the
they
ruling
will,
is.
because I remember an earlier Proteus League where they kept playing, but maybe it was because also board ones. I remember the finals between
Board ones cannot be eliminated by draws. But in the
Will the
previous
others?
format used as a tiebreaker in Pro Chess League playoffs, if non-board ones draw, they would get eliminated. So
I see. Okay, that's the difference, because I recall the board one clash where the Eagles and the Pandas kept fighting on board one, and that was such a thriller. In this case, it's gonna be then a double elimination, meaning that we're gonna move on to board 3 if this game is a draw.
yeah, I think so. But this is day 1 of the PCL Arena special, event. So by tomorrow, the commentators, I don't know if you're doing tomorrow's shift, but
yeah, I will be such a knowledgeable
by
person
tomorrow,
by tomorrow.
you will definitely be able to tell people the rules.
we to be fair with you and me, David, we did our homework, but it's still that some of the pieces of the puzzle are even to us are a bit surprising, because it's such a brand new and fresh format. We need to get used to it. The fact that the first 2 hours was 3 minutes, no increment. I think in the first game, both you and me, even though we knew the time control, we were like, oh my gosh, that they can flag each other. You can win on time.
Yeah, the flag was a surprise. I did know it was 3-0. I did, yes, as you say, do my homework, think about the format. When I picked players for my team, I considered that it was 3-0. But the flag still came as a surprise. I don't play a lot of 3-0 myself.
Likewise. I think it's one thing that we tried to do as best as we could, our reading, our homework, but another thing is to live it. And today we are experiencing for the first time this brand new format of the Pro Chess League, such an exciting format that it might mean that, as we said, if it's a draw, we move on to board 3. If either of these players manages to outsmart the opponent in this queen endgame, then they will knock out the other player.
I was going to ask you if you see any way to spice this up, because we're saying that the format is exciting, but this particular game,
this is the first
not most
game,
people's flavor.
I think. I believe there's always an exception to the rule, because we have been following game after game such action on every single board within the 2 hours of the arena of the 3-minute portion, that maybe this is just the calm before the storm. If not in this game, then the next board, I believe there's going to be a decisive result.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's blitz. There's going to be a lot of decisive results. That it sort of guarantees. Now, okay, now something's happening. Okay, so Black's going for Queen C4 to try and wrap the game up and force the draw, but giving White a chance to play Queen C7 check and maybe take on B7.
Yeah, this is something to calculate for sure, because now White is given the opportunity to either go for...
Looks like after White takes on B7, Black could take on C2, and then White could take on A6 while covering Queen C4.
I like that one. I like that option. And then a pass pawn, a distant pass pawn for White.
And you keep the king safe, and you're technically up a pawn for a bit. You may lose the D4, F3 pawns, but as you say, the A pawn would have some time to get going there.
I'm pretty sure that that's what Sandro is calculating here.
Yeah. First critical moment of the game from his perspective is the first time he's really settled in and put on the thinking cap.
And he's putting that cap on for quite a long time.
Right. There's not many other options either, right? To stop Queen C2 and Queen C4. I mean, the worst option to stop Queen C2 would be this.
That is certainly the worst. We have seen a checkmate in one opportunity missed, but no, he's not going for it. He gives the check instead, and Black comes back with the queen. Doesn't want to enter that line.
Okay, wasn't planning to go into that. So now the plan is to rush the king up towards the B pawn. I mean, that's the opponent's only real weakness.
It is Black who has to be a bit more careful indeed to keep the defense of the B7 pawn with the queen on the 7th. So far, he does so by shuffling the queen back and forth between D7 and E7.
Yeah. And just so you know, for tomorrow's commentary gig, we are confirmed that on a draw, both board 4s would be eliminated and we would go to board 3s.
So that seems to be so far the most likely result. But with only 30 seconds for each player, I think there's still some play left in this game because of the clock.
Yeah. Now the Capybaras had white in the first game here because they finished second in that arena, but it will then alternate, right? So next game, the Panda board 3 will get white.
Indeed. So that's what's going to happen with this draw. Both Sandro Mareko and Bai Yinxi are eliminated, and we are moving on to board 3. So we could go back until the players are ready. They're going to need perhaps just a few seconds or a minute, but we could recap what we missed earlier in this Russian defense and some of the moments where perhaps we felt like there was a bit more, I guess it would have been more exciting in the very end, in the end game, the line you analyzed, David, when you said,
we should
check.
see. He thought for a minute and didn't go for it. Let's have a quick look at that. So,
or is it that with Queen E7?
Oh, but that's because Black chose not to do it.
Yeah,
Black chose to keep
back.
it stable with Queen E7.
I guess because Black played it safe, we didn't get to see that exciting position. I think Bai Yinxi did evaluate that correctly. It was too risky to go for giving up the B7 pawn. So if we just show for a moment, David, that line that you were calculating after Queen C7 check, in case Black does not come back with the queen, but chooses to keep the queen on E2 and capture the pawn on C2. Important that the A6 square, for the pawn we are capturing, it also helps us to guard the C4 square, so there's no perpetual check for Black. And that must be the reason why Bai Yinxi went back to E7 and played it more solid.
All right, so he played it more solid. Do you want to see what would have happened if this king tried to be the hero?
Sandra tried a little bit. Definitely there was will, but sometimes. Like you mean immediately with the with the queen?
With the queen on B8. Sorry.
No, both his gambits have been played today. Not exactly in that sense.
That was a slip. Okay, this is the position that I meant. All right.
Yeah, that was another attempt, but I guess once you go to A4, there would be a discover check with C5, and if you go to B4, I don't know, it might be a bit scary because you can almost get checkmated. Once the king is on A5, you push the pawn to C5 and queen B5. But I believe we are soon starting board 3. We certainly have the face cams of the players, so it's going to be Grandmaster Fear against Grandmaster Lidi.
Popping up, and I was going to ask you, what would be the queen pawn equivalent of the Petrov defense?
Good question. Maybe the Slav, but the Slav has some really complex lines too.
Yeah, but maybe an exchange Slav?
Oh, exchange Slav, certainly. Certainly.
Yeah,
this isn't that. This is a more creative approach.
Yeah, maybe threatening knight B5 already, but Black just develops another piece for the moment.
Yeah, I know I keep making PogChamps references because it has only just finished and I'm already missing the event. But in PogChamps, they had positions like this often because they want to get that knight B5, knight B4, knight fork.
So Black and White are both kind of...
Yeah.
If these weren't GMs, we would think that they were both going for that knight fork.
Exactly. And it could very well be PogChamps 4 that we are watching. I'm gonna be, I think, losing my job after today's show. I love and respect all these grandmasters. I think I'm making it sound even worse now because I'm trying to get out of it. But the way these grandmasters have been handling not only blitz chess, but they obviously are really good at rapid and classical chess. I would never even be close to that understanding of chess, and I have a huge respect for anyone that can be 5-head at a game I spend my whole life on, and they will always be just miles away from what I see on the board.
So you're what, 3.5 head? 4.27 head?
1.5 head, and they have 5 heads. I think yeah, I'm 1.5 head and they have 5 heads. And that's the grandmasters, not speaking of super grandmasters and Hikaru and Carson level of grandmasters. That's 10 head.
10 head. Okay.
10 head, yeah. What do you think,
So
David?
knight A4 Knight a4, we always have to consider when there's like a queen and a pawn on c5 under pressure. And here the move queen b4 check hitting the knight. And the knight would have to come back. Sometimes in this pattern here, there's a queen on d1 that can protect the knight by playing c3. And it works out really nicely for white. But here, the knight would be attacked and would just have to come back. So that would be a failure. So, black puts the queen on b6, pressures these two squares. I guess castling queenside is one way to defend both. And the other option is to defend your center pawn and leave the b pawn hanging because of rook b1.
Mm-hmm. Difficult decision in a sense that one would feel like because the kings are in the middle of the board and white is somewhat ahead in development, you should be able to give up the pawn, but you still need to care about your own king as well. And will we see any castling attempts? What do you think, David?
I'm going to predict knight e2 here because to my taste, castles queenside c4 would be pretty risky for white. Now, I mean, not game over, you lose because you quickly have this e4 counter. I mean, after we move the queen, but I don't think that's going to be to white's taste. Oh, he does something else. I thought the knight would come out. Okay, so queen b5, still maybe knight c7 in the air.
Yeah, not sacrificing the pawn, but going for the queen trade.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is a more solid approach. I was going to say solid, but with c4, the position is opening up. So even if there are no queens on the board, this is getting sharp.
Right. Yeah. Lee D, when he started playing in the Pro Chess League, he was a teenager. Now he's 21-ish. And Grandmaster, just a little bit under 2,600.
And his opponent has been around for a long time too, Alexander Fier, playing on the top boards for Brazil for many consecutive years and still obviously up there as the #1 player of his country. I think if now white takes, but white will consider though, do you want to take with the pawn? Do you want to take with the knight?
Yeah, I think Lee D managed to get a small edge with this d5 pawn. And the trick that he was using was leaving this pawn on d4 not recaptured because of rook takes d5. So like in this position, if black takes, rook d5, and this bishop's lost.
Yeah, that was having a beautiful tactical pattern.
Wait, now he's playing another fancier move that we didn't expect.
Oh, I did not. Absolutely. I thought he was just basically having a discussion with himself, whether to take with the pawn or with the knight, but it wasn't about the capture.
No.
95
so
check.
He's trying to get this king to interfere with the rook's coordination, but the question is there anything wrong with king e6? I guess he'll take and try and play rook e1 quickly. And that's the kind of thing that requires some calculation. Tough for a 3-minute game.
Very tough. Luckily, there's a 2-second increment. So a reminder that that's the difference between the arena and now this ladder match.
So like black's gonna, I'm just guessing a position for folks. Black's gonna probably try bishop b4, and then we might even see a3 b4 because rook e1 looks like the only way to harass black in that situation. But Fier is putting in some time trying to figure out how he wants to handle this. So check here. Takes, knight. Oh, getting out of the way of rook e1 and playing b4. Or knight c5.
This is very dangerous still for the black king that is trying to survive in the middle of the board. Luckily for the b4 bishop's help, the e1 square is guarded, but after 93, you probably need to keep that bishop on the diagonal. An intermediate move with that check that you're pointing at, David, does make a lot of sense. And I think that's what Fier must be calculating here.
I think we could give the check to control c5 a little bit better and develop the rook, right? Then drop back with the bishop and be ready to answer rook e1 check with king d7.
I think we might need to refresh our board for a second.
I'm going to try it.
Just so that we keep track of the current time as well.
So black played this bishop d6 defense and white plays the knight c5 check to transition to a bishop versus knight endgame. Still very tense. Technically, white's pawn structure is a little bit better, but with those pawns stuck on dark squares, the black king and knight can maneuver around pretty freely on the light squares. If black took all the rooks off the board, they would even have the advantage. White was thinking of maybe a b5 pawn sack to take on d5, just to be sure Fier defends that pawn. He could consider expanding with d4 as well at some point.
I would think that now it is black who can take the initiative with that knight dominating the bishop, since the h4 pawn was always hanging, plus knight forks, obviously, in a blitz game with 10 seconds for Li D.
Yeah, just on the increment there, a5, he's going to have to trade off that pawn. This is scrappy for white. I think that Li D is in great danger here.
And that king move that stepped out of the check with a check and nicely bringing in the rook on the c5, both on a4 and h4. The pawns are hanging.
It's powerfully placed. White's trying to cause trouble by activating the rook, which I mean, to me, I wouldn't have a better idea. Rook f7, knight e5 doesn't work. So well spotted by Fier. But that a pawn is an issue. White's definitely stayed in the game.
That is the big asset of white's position, indeed, the pass pawn, but black is trying to grab it.
I don't know what black plans after king b7 now. That looks like the end of the pawn. Knight takes rook is the end of the game.
Well, rook blunder. I think by that stage, with 2 extra pawns and more time, Fier had it all in control. So Alexander Fier for the Brazil Capybara stays. He has just eliminated Grandmaster Li D and will now take on board 3 of the Pandas. Wow. Yeah. What do you think, David, so far of the format and this last game?
Yeah, it's intense, actually. Holding my breath, even though it's not my team a little bit. Feeling really bad for the team captains. But so far, the Capybara is continuing to look really strong, I think.
Very strong, but we shall see how board 2 of the Pandas will do against Alexander Fier. And then the final bosses, Hikar Nakamura and Wei Yi, are sitting on board 1. So we're going to take a short break, and then we are back with the remaining boards of this very exciting match.
The World Chess Championship. The champion, Magnus Carlsen. The challenger, Jan Nepomniachtchi. Watch the only Twitch broadcast with live video from Dubai on Chess.com/TV. Your home for the World Chess Championship.
And Chess.com is your exclusive Twitch home for the video feeds for this year's World Chess Championship. Join us for the best coverage around as we watch this year's players, the defending champion Magnus Carlsen and challenger Jan Nepomniachtchi, battle for the title. The World Chess Championships coming in November to Chess.com.
I cannot wait for the World Chess Championship match to take place, and I'll definitely be watching it here on Twitch. But before we get to November and the World Chess Championship match, we have so much going on here with the Pro Chess League today. This is Group A, and we have two teams, the second and third place team, facing off because only one of these teams can qualify. So far, the Capybaras are leading. Their board 3, Alexander Fear, has just eliminated Li Di. So Fear is now going to play against Xu Xiangju. And if he manages to win, he will go all the way up to board 1. So the final bosses are Hikaru Nakamura and Wei Yi. They need to be the last player to be eliminated, and then the other team wins. Can they do it? Can the Capybaras or the Pandas get there?
I give Fear a solid shot here. He just won a game with black. Now he gets white. These players are all rated over 2,800 blitz on Chess.com. And I think he's got a chance to push the Pandas all the way to their final boss. We'll see.
Yeah, it could be a good chance. At the same time, as we mentioned earlier, Xu Xiangyu was and is a very important member for the Pandas. All of these former PCL seasons, he has been around and he has helped the Pandas to many of the PCL playoff successes. At the same time, I agree with you that that was an impressive win by Fear. So he is certainly in a really good shape. It's going to be, I think, a very close game where anything can happen.
Yeah, he's looking comfortable with the opening that he's getting. You know, he was setting up for an English attack. Xu Xiangyu played A5, looking for A5, A4, and he jumped into that weak square on B5 with the bishop. And personally, I've never seen an A5 variation against the English attack that I liked for black.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and then I was also just judging on the time that he was quickly ahead 20 seconds. I was thinking he was pretty happy with his opening.
Yeah, Fear has only been collecting time so far. A reminder on the time control, it's 3 minutes with a 2-second increment, different to what we saw at the first phase of today's coverage. I really like this initiative on the queen side. At the same time, black structure is solid. So if you get to guard the B7 pawn, this knight on A5 is an interesting one. Knight C8. Wow. I wouldn't have predicted that move, I think.
Yeah, it's in a tricky position, right? Now, if we get into B7, how do we get out?
And that is the point of Xu Xiangyu saying that you can take my pawn, but your knight will be forever stuck. So if white cannot take the pawn, eventually it means you need to defend it or come back.
Gosh, retreating isn't very nice either because knight c4 allows b5 and it's very awkward. It's heading to a3 and black's expanding on the queen side. And he does do that. I was also looking at an alternative with b4, which also didn't look very good for white. So the knight is just doing a big dance.
It is a very big dance, and from a knight that I originally was praising, now it's a bit of an awkward situation. At the same time, the b5 pawn is hanging and the d5 pawn, we could see a massive, basically change, a shift in the pawn structure and who's going to have the initiative because the white king is still in the middle of the board.
Yeah, Xu Xiangyu, he was like pushed. He had to come up with some really strong moves, but he's come up with some cool stuff. One half of his idea is that on knight b5, he can eliminate the center pawn. That's pretty simple. But the other part is that bishop b6, queen b6, white can win a pawn on b5, but then white's dark squares are weak and they haven't yet figured out what to do about the king. So to me, that's not a very appetizing pawn. I mean, black has to come up with the idea and be confident to play that position down a pawn. As white, I would not be very tempted to take on b6. He does.
And yet he does it. I agree with you that it feels like the dark squares will fill the lack of that bishop. And e4 immediately, Black is trying to open up the center while the king is still uncastled.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like Xu Xiangyu is just like is just like handing out those hammer blows, like in a game you would find in a book. Just, and now this and now that, everything is there and perfectly timed.
So it's I think, a natural response from fear that he wants to trade queens. Obviously, then the pawn up would feel more of a pawn up, and the king would definitely be safer too.
Right. I mean, that said, Black could have won back the pawn, I think. I mean, it depends on some lengthy calculations, but a queen trade and then knight d5, fe4, knight e3 would have probably been regaining Black's pawn. But keeping queens on is also desirable. And Fier chases the Black queen. Xu Xiangyu could have gone back to b6 if he wanted the draw, right? Eliminate one more player.
I guess he does not want the draw because that would mean he gets eliminated, and so does Fier. But
He's
it's
the
not
board too. He doesn't want that, even with Black.
It doesn't favor the pandas.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing for a win because I guess if you're eliminated, you may as well try to win, because for him a draw or a loss in that sense is the same.
Yeah. Okay, he doesn't want to put everything on Wei Yi's shoulders, so he's going to try and stay in this match a bit longer. Position looks reasonably pleasant for Black. Maybe you can put the pawn on d5.
I think he has a good chance here with so much pressure on both the queen side and the king side, plus this d pawn that survived. It was not captured on d6. It's still on the board.
This knight is great on a dark square, taking away a bunch of light squares. That's pretty ideal. White's knight, by contrast, can be challenged by Black's bishop. So it'll be happier if it gets into somewhere like c6.
Which is now a very appealing option. I don't know what's the way out of it. Knight c6 fork. Wait, are we missing something big? Is there bishop g5
well, let me know when
magical
you see it.
Tactics? Because this seems to be a very important fork. And after the check, king b1, so that there were no checks out. Do you think that Xu Xiangyu missed it?
I do. And I think the only reason I saw it is because I was thinking about how positionally it would be desirable for the knight to be on a light square, which happened to be tactically desirable as well.
Yeah, well, this is a huge turn of events in this sense, because Xu Xiangyu is the board 2 player of the pandas facing board 3 of the capybaras. So Alexander Fier, again, with a good chance to maybe even take down yet another Chinese player.
Yeah, that said, this position is very, very tricky to play. Some people may be misled by our evaluation bar over on the side or by like the rook. Look at that. It just went right where the bishop could take it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that because Fier evaluates that the bishop on c3 is so strong, holding back the a-pass pawn, gluing the b2 pawn to the board, he's ready to give the rook back.
Right. That was incisive. I mean, because this knights hate passed rook pawns, right? Well, I mean, on the opposing team, right? So knights are going to struggle against a passed rook pawn. Bishop's pretty good in endgames with pawns on both sides of the board, and now he's got his rook out. And there's another tactical trick from Xu Xiangyu.
Yeah, in case of the capture, knight d3 would have been a knight fork. White does not miss it, and there was also a back rank pattern in case the rook was going to leave. That was indeed the idea. So instead, rook d1 was played. And now that White king is already all the way up on b4, ready to push the a pawn, a5.
Getting ready. And yeah, Black needs something like incredible to change the balance. I guess he's looking at a5, knight d5 check, and then rook takes b5, knight c3. But that might even lose with the knight on t1 at the end.
It could be the case if the knight gets back in time.
Right? Like sometimes it's like Black set up a trap for you, right? They go check here. Why won't it let me play that?
I think because they already played a few moves since.
Right. So like this kind of a variation, right? Like you think you're a genius, and then the a pawn just wins at the end, actually.
Yeah, the knight is too slow to get to the pass one. What happened instead, that tactical trick didn't happen and wasn't going to work for Black. So It's better that Shushan, you didn't play it now. Knight d4 check. And the potential repetition, but that will eliminate both players. Is Fia ready for that? I guess so.
Yeah, you're winning. You're winning, my man.
Oh, no, he's not ready. He wants to stay. He wants to
Good.
try with 16 seconds.
Yeah. I approve. I mean, it's a winning position for white. If I had like 2 minutes on my clock, I'd be pretty confident. Oh my God. Rook on C1 had a scare.
Oh, that tactical pattern almost took the rook off white, but in the end you could block with bishop c6 and now guard it with king b6. Everything is hanging in there by a thread.
Seems to be still winning. Rook check and then bishop to d7 maybe. I mean b7. The a pawn has not managed to move, and now the king's not helping to control a5 anymore. I think Fier's actually wandered a little bit off of where he needed to be. And I would have put the bishop on the long diagonal on b7 there. I think he had a good chance with that.
Now guarding the pawn so that pass pawn still stays on the board. If he takes on f7, he's giving up the a4 pawn, so he might not want to do that.
Is the bishop going to head to b7 now?
And then try to push. That would be a very promising winning position with the bishop guarding the pass pawn.
Push. Oh, he's very close to the win. His
Oof.
king's also very close to being mated.
Yes. If the rook could make it to the back rank now. Or knight c7, but then king b8.
I suppose when you try to win, sometimes you lose. There is bishop
Sometimes you
c8
do.
to block. It's not always going to be instantly checkmate.
Wow.
But there is a fun possibility of a7, rook check, bishop blocks, knight d6, and then if you queen, getting mated with an extra queen. But white always has
my.
rook b1, so white should never get mated. They would have to really blunder. Rook takes and a7 should clarify. Yes, Fier.
Fier wins again. He's eliminating yet another player of the China Pandas. Impressive play by the Brazilian Grandmaster, who is currently the MVP of the Capybaras. They have Hikaru Nakamura as the final boss. But at this rate, Fier is saying, we may not need Hikaru's help because I'm taking down single-handedly the entire Panda team.
And I mean, great poise when it got low on time to actually pull it out, but also one of the most brilliant moments we've seen today with that rook e1 move, just developing his rook to the square attacked by the opponent's bishop, right? I mean, that was a deep move. And I think that we saw, there may have been some tactics or some tricks here or there in that rook and bishop versus rook and knight scenario which went on for like 20 or 30 moves and was definitely complicated, but the chances I think we can see were sort of generally with white throughout that phase.
I agree. And the fact that he was ready to give back the rook as soon as he won it, he was like, no, your bishop is too strong. I'll trade it for my rook. And then we see the end game. Very, very instructive moment. And that means that Alexander Fier will be facing the top board of the China Pandas. And if he wins again or draws, I guess, what happens? What happens if it's a draw between board 1 and board 3? Because we saw draws for board 1 versus board 1.
Producer.
See, everything
Lifeline.
is so fresh that we need to ask the questions that are not that obvious, because we have seen playoffs with board 1 versus board 1 drawing. But is it the same draw if it's a board 3 that manages to draw? Can he play for a draw?
I don't know. I feel like you should have to beat their final player. So I'm guessing that the format is you have to actually beat their top player to eliminate them.
It's just going to be weird if they would be eliminated. I guess then they would replay the game rather than eliminating Fier and Wei Yi stays. That would be strange. So I think you're right. Actually, maybe not. Maybe Alexander Fier does have the draw odds. We are just getting the confirmation that because it's a board 3, it would mean if it's a draw, now the next game, the Capybaras win. Because this is their board 3.
So Hikaru would not be allowed to eliminate Wei Yi with a draw, but Fier is allowed to. He can offer
Yes.
any repetition he
Yeah.
sees.
Exactly. So if it's the same board one versus board one, then they need to keep replaying it. But because it's board 3 or board 2 could also be, but not the same board. So it means that they are ahead already. The capybaras have won more games. Then a draw favors them. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, I would love to see the match decided by a pawn queening, but if it's going to have to be a threefold repetition that knocks someone out, so be it. In the chat, they're asking, why is Hikaru a capybara? Why is he playing for Brazil?
Well, Hikaru is streaming, so if you guys want to ask him and then let us know, because we were told last minute that Hikaru signed for the Brazil Capybaras. That was the biggest news for us right before we went live with the show. We had all the graphics prepared and Hikaru's name wasn't on the roster. So it happened in such last minute, at least what was communicated toward our production, that we ourselves don't know because it was breaking news. So please let us know if Hikaru has talked about this on his stream. He obviously is streaming and he's watching the games, supporting his teammates.
But one part of the answer is that this is the Pro Chess League. It's not the Olympiad, right? That was
of course
earlier this week. This is the Pro Chess League. It's professional. So that means that the teams are allowed to hire any player that they want. They can offer them, money or, I don't know, Chess.com merchandise, a nice fresh t-shirt, a throw pillow, and, reach an agreement for the players that they like to play for their team.
Yeah, you can sign with any team. There is no restriction on geographical location. So Hikaru was open to sign with any of the teams that were perhaps he wants to play on a team with his friends. Perhaps he was like the Capybaras is a team he was rooting for in earlier PCL seasons. But you need to ask him and then let us know, because literally it was breaking news. It certainly was.
Look at this. This is breaking my heart. According to chat, it was the only team that invited him to play.
Oh, that cannot be.
And he's doing it pro bono. I could have had Hikaru on my team. What was I doing?
David. And in the meantime, we have our game.
You comment the game while I cry, okay?
We're missing the game because we suddenly realized that David could have tried to sign Hikaru and you missed your chance there.
Okay.
You missed it, David. I'm sorry I'm rubbing it in, but you missed it.
I'm one of the 15 worst managers in the whole league. And the only good one is Krikor.
I guess everyone assumed that Hikaru already had a team, or that maybe he didn't want to play because he already has a very busy schedule.
Jeez.
Luck favors the brave. The Capybara's captain asked, and he said yes.
Okay. Well, there's a lot more to unpack there, but we've got to get to the game, I guess, because this game won't wait. It's a blitz game. So Wei Yi's got the white pieces. Every single game is a must win, or the next two games are must wins for him. And then he could maybe play against Hikaru. His opening looks tough. Looks tough. I mean, he's giving up the bishop pair for nothing that I see.
Yeah, it's a funky placement of the knights. I wonder if this D1 knight is now heading toward F2 or E3. It's certainly not the natural development of the knight. He castles first to get the king out of the open E file. Logical.
Okay.
I was going to say that what I liked about Black's position, or White's position, sorry, that there was pressure on the F6 pawn, but after D4, Black is trying to shut the diagonal so that you could develop the G8 knight and castle too.
So that's what White had, was that Black couldn't finish development. Thank you. Now I see. And so White's trying. So now like a very sharp battle starts, right? Black says, I'm going to block out your bishop. White says, let's trade pawn to make my bishop good again. Black says, I'm going to maybe lose this pawn, but I'm not letting the bishop out of B2, right? And I would expect a C4 pawn sack from Black at some point. Oh, no, he just left the pawn hanging on D3 and then played C4.
So Black has given up a pawn for development, now pushes C4. I like this because it means that now the B2 bishop that used to be the star of the show is a very passive piece.
Oh, yeah. He looks terrible. Knight on D3, not very good either. Honestly, White's three minor pieces are completely random. I mean, it's as if somebody who didn't play chess saw the pieces on the ground, picked them up and put them somewhere on the board.
Yeah, I wonder how Fier does it. That he's so creative. He came up with this, but maybe we are praising him too much because it's true that there are issues in Black's position too.
That's a second pawn. Wei Yi picked up that one on f6 that you talked about before being a weakness, making it hard to develop the knight on g8. As soon as the knight developed, drop that pawn. I mean, that knight on d3 is giving me agony, but white is up 2 pawns, sort of.
Although those 2 pawns up are the isolated
Miserable.
doubled d pawn, so it's not that threatening.
It's kind of crazy. I can't help but seeing that the evaluation bar is like pointing in white's direction.
Yeah.
But this is one of the absolute ugliest looking positions that I've ever seen evaluated as being good for the player with the ugly position.
Yeah, because it feels like Black should have compensation at least.
Yeah. And I wonder if like at a GM level, the 2 players playing this game right now also feel like Black has compensation, or if for them they understand, oh, even with the bad pawn, you can eventually plop your knights on c5 or e5 and make it all work out.
Yeah, good question. I wonder if that's how they feel about it. And also the time pressure, both of them are below a minute at this stage.
93 coming to trade something, or just 95? Yeah, just following the plan.
The knight is looking very nice on e5 and is backed up by the other knight too, or just to straighten the pawn structure in case there's a capture.
The entire Pandas team has like 38 seconds left.
True.
To win their first game of the ladder elimination phase.
And if Wei Yi manages to win, because it does seem that he is now solidifying the position, has this strong knight post on e5.
That said, he just dropped one of his 2 pawns.
Oh, he did drop one of his pawns to trade the bishop. Still has an extra pawn, but that's now less visible, the one that's hiding on d2, I guess. I was just going to add that even if Wei Yi manages to win, he still needs to take down board 2 and board 1 of the capybaras. So Alexander Fier has been doing so well that he's the board 3 of the Brazilian team, and he kept winning games.
Yeah. And it was tempting for white there to play rook c1 check, rook b1 check, force the king into the corner. But then at the end, when you move the knight off of e5, Black would have knight e2. So white had to show good self-control and not play those like clever in-between moves.
True.
When they still had things hanging. Knight f3. So Fier's trying to collect his pawns. He picked up both of those pawns that looked weak.
He did. Oh, now that rook is in a knight fork, if white doesn't prevent knight b3.
Gotta avoid knight b3. And the knight heads to c5, and Black seems to have collected the pawn and untangled.
Wow.
Yeah. So was white ever really winning? I don't know. King e7.
Yeah, the advantage
was
seemed more
e1.
a material advantage than something concrete.
Oh man, Fier. He could be a hero. How's he feeling here? Focused. I would call that focused. 11 seconds left for the Pandas.
I just heard it on the channel of the captain. That's Krikor Mkhitaryan for the Capybaras. They were already very calm about the match because they were like, we have Hikar on board 1, we have the Ricardinho on board 1. And I think that made them feel very, very sure about their future.
It takes pressure off of Fier and everybody else. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. They may not even need to get there, it seems.
Well, they've got that 2-second increment. Don't forget that, folks. So they're low enough on time that anything could happen on the board, but it's not like someone's going to, be up a queen and flag or something like that. Whoever wins on the board will win the game. And white has gotten into Black's position, and Black has to throw counterplay, and it is a race.
Oh my. White is not trying to grab the g6 pawn and then push the f pawn.
Interesting choice by Fier to go rook a3, e3, and kick that knight somewhere bad. Who's going to stop the a pawn?
It's a very good question. White has more pawns, but Black's pawn is faster.
Rook check. Yeah. Okay. Somebody can get somewhere in that direction. Maybe. Oh my goodness. Rook c5, a2, rook c1. Oh, that pawn. He just let it queen.
Oh my.
Wei Yi's
Fear
just
can
like
even
a
allow the
queen.
knight fork because he has a new queen on the board.
I don't want to call it too soon, but Fier is in good shape to be the only thing that anybody talks about after this arena today.
He seems to be in a very good shape. 20 seconds left versus 5 and the queen up, but still needs to break through. At this rate, Wei Yi will not resign, but even a draw, unfortunately. So for Wei Yi, he not only needs to save this, he has to swindle a win out of this
Has to
position.
avoid any repetitions.
And Fia, I think, can just offer the repetition indeed.
Oh,
and that he wins for his team. Wow. Alexander Fier, board 3 of the Capybaras, takes down the entire China Pandas team. They didn't even need Hikar on the first board. He was waiting for his turn, but Fier did it single-handedly.
Oh, man. And there must be a party going on some other streams, right? I'm guessing that Krikor and Hikaru are probably streaming and
Absolutely.
partying.
Both of them celebrating this massive win for the Brazil Capybaras, meaning that they move on to the next stage of the Pro Chess League, and the China Pandas will not continue this year's event.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Olamiro says, I wanted the match to be decided by a pawn queening, not by a repetition. And look, it was both. He did technically sort of like get into a winning position, queening that pawn, but then at the end took the repetition because it clinched the match.
True. Very true. Goodness
By the way,
me.
I would have just choked and lost this position as black in this situation here, about to eliminate the whole other team. I would have somehow lost with the extra queen.
I don't believe you, David. I don't believe you. But we're going to take a really quick break and then sum up what has just happened today on the first day of the Pro Chess League. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the show. But if you want to make sure that you do not miss any action, please do follow us on all sorts of social media platforms. You see, we have everything you need, even TikTok. I didn't know we make TikTok videos, but please do follow us on TikTok as well. And ! Discord if you want to join our Discord channel. David, do you use this Discord just as much as TikTok?
I use Discord more than TikTok. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. I used to have a TikTok and I'm no longer active there, but we do have a schedule for you guys, and not about our future recordings for clips, but we do have the next stages of the Pro Chess League. Tomorrow is Group B. And then, as we said, Saturday is a break for Pro Chess League for the Grand Prix, but on Sunday, we will be back with Group C. And on Monday, that's when David's team will be playing in Group D.
Yeah. I guess I'll have to try to watch that.
I think I'll be hosting both tomorrow and on Monday. And the teams that will be playing tomorrow, of course, are also very much familiar faces in the Pro Chess League. David, what do you think of tomorrow's squads?
Well, India's just been strong everywhere. So I think that's like the obvious thing to say, right? I mean, they were a strong team in the Olympiad, although they got upset by the US there, but the Indian team was very strong last year in the Pro Chess League. They're strong in the Olympiads. They're strong in all the team events. They've got incredible players like world champion Anand. They've also got like young guns, like, you know, the youngest grandmasters in the world keep coming from there. So that's a powerful team. But France is extremely strong as well with Maxim Chigayev, Etienne Bacot. This is a team that basically, well, I see that they've added a non-French player to their team for the first time, but they made a whole video basically mocking other teams for needing to import players and hire players, even though it's the Pro Chess League. I mean, you're supposed to be able to hire players, right? But they have hired Robert Hess and then a bunch of French players.
Commentary. I think he was going to be my co-host for some of the shows, but look at him playing. He's stolen, kidnapped.
That's even better though. He should occasionally play. He's so good. And I don't think it's a secret. And there's no reason I shouldn't say this. I have tried to hire Robert Hess for the California Unicorns in the past a couple times, and he's always declined. I guess he was waiting for his true home in France. That's okay. I'm not a very good manager. I don't blame anybody.
Joining the French Olympic team, indeed, that is our very own Grandmaster Robert Hess. He will be competing tomorrow among the other three very strong teams that you guys have seen. And as you know, only the first one will qualify immediately. The fourth one is eliminated. And the second and third place teams will tomorrow too play a ladder knockout match, as we have witnessed today. What a day this has been for the Capybaras, and Alexander Fier taking it home. Board 3, winning against every single player of the Pandas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about him. That's what the news article will say tomorrow. I can already read it in my head. You know, they're going to show every game he played, and deservedly so.
And the other is that David should have asked Hikaru if he was available. I'm sorry.
Yes, I should have.
And many other captains. No one realized. The Capybaras realized. Now they have him, and my mattress has arrived. Thank you, producer, for the reminder.
And the mattress is waiting for you. Yeah, you know, my approach was that like anybody who's not on a team was like a free agent. I wanted to know who's not on a team. I'll hire anybody. I understand it's professional. You can hire them. They don't have to be from your hometown, although I like to also have a hometown flavor. So I like to have at least 50% California players. But players who've played on previous teams, I just figured, you know, it's loyalty. They'll stay with that team. I'm not going to bother them. But now I guess I have to email every player every time. At least every Hikaru. That's not that long a list.
Every Hikaru. Well, now we know Hikaru moves on to the next stage of the Pro Chess League together with his new team, the Brazil Capybaras. And we will be back tomorrow with a show, as well as David will be on captain duties on Monday. So stay with us every single day, same time, same place. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first day of a very brand new, exciting, fresh format of the Pro Chess League. And we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back tomorrow for more.